Hello, everybody. How's it going? It's Sunday. Surprise. It's Sunday, and we're back. It's
Yeah,
the weekly
weekly
comic
now.
chat.
Yeah, look, we can say
Weekly,
that now.
all the time, every week. We never missed a week. Never. So if you
Well, you
missed a
did it.
week, that's on you, not on
Yeah,
us. We're around.
yeah,
Thanks very much for hanging out with us on Sunday. Rasa, how are you?
cool. Horns on
Yeah,
the
pretty good. Yeah.
yeah. Mulled
You gonna
wine.
unveil? You gonna unveil your shirt on the stream?
No, do I
No.
want to? Do you want people to talk about
No, no,
it?
no, no. It's
Yeah,
fine.
we
I
would say,
don't mind.
what the hell is on the back of the shirt now?
Yeah,
Not just a couple of words. Some of them offensive,
right.
some isn't.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
No, no, it's totally
it
fine.
depends on your
Uh,
perspective.
yeah, that's right.
Mm.
So how's things this week? How are you feeling this week?
Much, you know, if good days and bad days, and then like
Yeah, right.
daily crap you have to deal with most of the time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, money related. Ooh, mystery. Yeah, Damien.
Hello, Damien. Yeah. Stick around till the end of the stream, and maybe we'll reveal it. Maybe
Maybe if I have enough
we have to.
mulled wine.
Let's get 1,000 likes on this video. Let's get 100 people in the chat room. Then we'll do the reveal.
You're doing that kind
We're
of
sitting
thing,
at
huh?
4 right now. We're 4 people in the room, so pump those numbers up, people. Smash that like button. Pound that bell. Yeah.
YouTube, come on, put us up there in
Come on,
this
put us up there on the
algorithm.
main page.
Come on, we need more than like whatever views we have.
Yeah, that's right. I'm fine with the amount of views we have. We have just the right amount.
Oh yeah, I like everybody who comes to visit us anyway, so it's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, this week is like, like always, you have the winter
Yeah.
coming, Christmas choking everywhere, and I just can't stand it anymore already. Oh. Watch this stream.
There are 996 other people in my apartment watching the stream. Well, get them to get an account and sign them up. Nice one.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Have you already heard Christmas songs around? Because I already did.
Oh fuck me! I heard Christmas songs before Halloween. Drives me fucking mental. Yeah.
I don't mind. I think this like when you start having kids, it's much more entertaining now. Because it's the hype they give you, they give you the hype and all that stuff, and they get so excited. But the one thing now we were considering this week, my son lost his first tooth.
Oh, nice.
And then according to some school regulations they teach them, he knows about tooth fairy. We have not disclosed that information because I kind of like forget that things happen like that. So, like, I was actually calling my mom, my God, he's 5 and like almost to be 6 years old. Yeah, you sure his tooth has to come out now? And she's like, yeah, lady, it's about to come out anyway. So I was like really worried, but so he's like, okay, tooth fairy is gonna bring me presents and I'm ready for them. I was like, really? Presents? Are you sure? You're not talking about the minuscule coins about the coin thing. These kids, we have to. We don't really learn. Like we learn about coins, that's for sure. He's already starting to calculate money. He started talking about how much list. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's too expensive, man. Those giant inflatable Santas aren't cheap, eh? One is I actually looked, to be honest. Funny you talked about Damien, but I was looking out and it's like £150.
Yeah.
For one giant one, if you're talking giant inflatable ones. So anyway, so he was so excited and he's like, oh my God. And I said to me, my husband's like, you're gonna have a coin, just put your tooth under the pillow and the coin will appear and you'll be happy and you can, save for your presents after. So yeah, he woke up and the first thing he did, under the pillow, look it up. Oh, let's how he found a coin and he starts celebrating and showing me off. And because he was with the wobbly tooth for like about a week. So it was kind of more, maybe a week and a half actually, even because, eating was difficult for him. It's like right there at the bottom. And he was like, oh, I don't like it. And he even actually asked me to take the tooth out for him. He said to me, Mom, let's go dentist. I said, are you sure you want to go to the dentist? Like, no. but he's like, and he opens his mouth and he's like, yeah, you can take it out. I was like, I was a bit squeamish in that time. But I
Yeah.
think he just was really fed up, and he just before his sleep, he this tooth falling. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
know, right?
selling your body parts. Yeah.
But I
Get
wasn't.
by, man.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The school is already teaching in them those things, because he was talking about
Yeah.
tooth fairy way before his wobbly tooth started, because he has all the classmates who's already had it. So I
Mhm.
guess they were already disclosing that information. So it's kind of like you have to kind of get like they pacing information quite fast. Like they get so much or info in the schools. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
You can't. I want to be like, if you like would be that kind of person who is like a parent who wants to disclose information first, would be
Mhm.
quite difficult, because everything is already in their heads and they're already talking about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because there's other kids that have gone through it maybe earlier, so it comes up
Yeah,
in class.
exactly, because the variety. So he's age relating in his classroom is like middle, not the youngest one. There's some of them who's
Mhm.
like right basically before the school's summer holidays, they turn only the age of the group, so it's kind of really late for them. So,
Mhm.
but as I say, it's very big variety of ages in the classroom anyway. But it's
Yeah.
between 5 and 6, like, so that's where his classroom was all about. But anyway, he was very excited. He now had his, and we bought his new hoodie for him. He chose, and he's so excited because it has a side pocket. So now that's where he keeps the money, and he doesn't let me
Mhm.
wash the hoodie now. So it's like, I need to wash the hoodie. It's dirty. Like, nope. He
Nope.
wakes up, he puts back on. I was like, no, I need it. And then before he goes to school in England, we do uniforms, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it fortunate or unfortunate? Anyway, so he has uniforms,
Yeah.
and we have to put on a uniform. And he's like, "Oh, I wanted to go with the hoodie." It's like, no, you can't, because it's not part of your uniform, so you can't take
That's
it. So
right.
you have to be wearing proper stuff. So it's
Mhm.
kind of interesting how that goes. But in
Yeah.
some ways, I would like. I was growing up with uniforms when I was going to school, so I'm not new to that kind of
Hello,
stuff.
Donald.
But I know when
Yeah.
I saw a picture of Lillian going to first class, I was like, "Whoa, she's not wearing anything." So it's kind of
Oh, yeah, no. Uniforms
interesting.
here are mostly for, like, private schools. There's private schools
Mm.
here in Winnipeg where they do uniforms, but, not
Oh,
in public schools, yeah.
oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here, so everything. And I think in private schools, you have to be even more complicated, the uniform. Yeah,
Yeah.
kitten is trying to say hello.
Yeah, there's a cat
Uh,
around here somewhere, but she's not making an appearance. Come on up
but
wherever you are.
the only thing is, they not really good information parts when it comes to uniforms buying. They have their own websites, like, oh yeah, go there. You have your emblems, have special emblems, and those
Right.
those cost a fortune just to get for 1 year or even half of a year. Depends on your child's age. Some parents complain because they say like, what, my I just bought one. Why do I have to buy another one because my kid is growing like
Growing. Yeah.
like yeah like beans in the store kind of thing. You give him one
Yeah,
pea
yeah.
and he's like it seems to be he's growing too much. So anyway,
Um, speaking of the coins, we had so here in Winnipeg is the Mint,
mhm.
and the Mint does a lot of the coins for not only Canada but for other countries in the world. So
Mm.
we had the first coins come off the line with the king's face on the opposite side. So
Ooh.
we have your fucking king on our coins now. We just got rid of the queen, and now we got the king on. So those have started coming off the line already. So
Oh
I guess
wow.
they'll be in circulation pretty soon.
Yeah, but I think it's usually comes in January every new
Yeah.
year, or new financial year could be this year, which is April most of the time in this part of the world.
Yeah, right.
It could be that, but it depends. There's some sort of a always have, yeah, you wish.
I
Now
wish.
unfortunately you have that one with inflated hands one. There's a talk that his hands are like ballooned because he's
Oh, yeah, really?
apparently no, he has some sort of condition
Oh,
which just
okay.
doesn't get disclosed much on the World Wide Web. But every single
Right.
time, if you notice, if you ever watch television, let's say this way, and you see the Charles, you'll see look at his hands. You'll see it's not
Ah,
normal. So he has
yeah,
some sort
right.
of condition going on there. Yeah, and he celebrated his birthday apparently just recently. So and everybody now. So that's how media in this world works. Okay, Queen died, and the clock is ticking. When he's gonna go? Because there's also a bet on his life whenever he's gonna perish.
Jesus. Yeah,
because
right.
because they don't like that much Charles anyway in this country. I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
not as much
yeah.
as what Queen was. Queen was respected throughout the world because due
Mhm,
the way she's represented herself, and she never been, the kind of thing, kind of she was the like a backbone of a lots of countries, kind of thing, or
yeah,
the way she was representing her ages also was a thing. But him has never been kind of a face nobody knew, didn't want him, especially with Diana's situation, all that kind of stuff.
mhm,
I think
mhm,
William is the next one they want because he's the kind of they grew like generations grew up like he's my age kind of thing, similar age group, so we kind of grow up in the same area. So everybody's like, oh yeah, William, William. It's a pity about
mhm.
his hair, but it's William, William.
Yeah, yeah.
So funny. Honestly, media in this country is kind of, you know,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
everywhere
funny
is the
everywhere.
same, is it?
It's yeah,
Public stuff
yeah.
like that. So
It's all ridiculous, yeah.
yeah. Um,
So, after our last weekend, we
yeah.
finished, the Loki TV show. We watched the final 3 episodes of that,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kinda surprised at how like, it's the one Marvel show I can honestly say that 1 minute I was absolutely loving it, and then
Mm-hmm.
literally a minute later I was hating it, and then 5 minutes later I was enjoying it again, and then I was loving it, and then I was hating it, all the way till
Mm-hmm.
the very end. And honestly, I thought the very last episode was actually pretty damn good, considering, like, because
Oh
the
yeah.
um the TV shows um the
Mm.
TV shows are kind of like they're hit and miss at the best of times. This one was absolutely hit and miss, but honestly, I kind of dug the ending of
Mm.
Loki and kind of where that character is moved in that story. I thought was pretty fucking interesting because there was a few times leading up to that last episode where anytime you're dealing with time travel, you're always just going to get into a easy like, well, if something goes wrong, we'll just go back in time and fix it. So there was a little bit of that Groundhog Day stuff kind of happening, which
Yeah.
was is kind of tired, and that was where I was really hating it. But honestly, I really was impressed with the direction it took. I would maybe mildly recommend it to people who are into like the Marvel TV shows. I wouldn't say it's a must see, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you're into it, I'd say give it a shot because it does, and give it the chance. And I guess that's the other good thing too, right? Because it was only 6 episodes, so it's
Mm-hmm.
not a huge investment. You're not sitting and watching 12 episodes, so
Yeah.
I think that's a little more reasonable to kind of digest. So yeah,
I one thing really got annoyed me, when he was phasing out from one dimension to whatever timeline to another. That flick of his hair every single time. I could
yeah,
not stop
yeah,
looking every time. It's like, why you flick
yeah,
that hair? Like,
yeah, yeah,
what I mean? And there's this, that movie of Black Widow, and that other chick, the white in white, I
yeah.
was forgotten the name. Anyway, she's like,
I
why
can't
you
remember either,
always
but yeah,
pose like superhero? So basically, that's his superhero pose with this flick of his hair. Every
yeah.
single phase, and he just flicks his hair. Like, it started to annoy me. But yeah,
That's also
I
that's also just an actor thing too, right? Like getting their hair out of their face for their close
yeah,
up and all that kind of shit, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
noticed it as well though with him doing that
Yeah,
hair flip
yeah.
at the end. Yeah.
And that he was wearing trench coat, or no,
Yeah.
a jacket, wasn't it? A coat? No, no, not coat, a jacket, wasn't it? And anyway, so he's like always fixing that up. I was like, oh, it's repeating, because I think they were using the same shot probably most of the time when they were doing that phasing up. Anyway, so there's so many tidbits you can pick on the show. It's very easy. But another thing I could
Yeah.
say, if you want to slightly get to know Loki, or Loki, what you're not expecting him to be like, it's perfect show to be. So this Loki
Yeah.
is definitely a TV show Loki. It's nothing compared to the comic books you will ever see. This guy
Mhm.
is more loving, more caring, more kind of lonely. When you ever notice Loki in comic
Mhm.
books, you would be. There's some moments he has. He definitely doesn't have the Frost Giant's blood in him in this TV show,
Right.
because he's not that mischievous as you're expecting him to be. So, but it's
Mhm.
interesting how he ended up being on that spoiler alert thing where he solved the kind of, I don't want to say even because it's a kind of big spoiler, but if you watch it, notice the end of a scene is actually used from a comic book where he was
Ah,
actually was put away by Thor in a location where he was supposed to
right.
exiled. He was sitting on something and it looks exactly the same, so I think they used that as a shot idea. But I enjoyed it. But as I say, it was liking, hating, and liking once again. And that last episode was saving grace of the show, to be honest, because then it felt like you kind of really understood what they was trying to do. And it's like saying we're changing Norse history for this character in this TV universe or slash movie universe. How you
Yeah, yeah.
perceive Loki, who he's supposed to be, is like more caring, and but he's still kind of you receive what he always wanted to. He ended up being a god, and I was saying to my husband, he's a god. He's a god. Nothing happens to him because he's a god. He has a different way of dealing with his mortality, as you
Hmm.
would say, you're mere humans, like this Mobius guy and that whole universe. So
Yeah,
anyway, I enjoyed it, as I say, but it was kind of like, that I think they definitely need to change the way they want to put shows through for people to watch, because it's
hmm,
very the same thing happening. If they don't entice you too long, you have to be caring enough about comic books, I think, more, or you have to be a huge fan of movies that you'll make you want to go back. But
yeah.
honestly, as a that kind of person, I'm still wouldn't be crazily going say, oh yeah, this is the first thing. So okay, one thing I can say, don't watch those invasion things, whatever, with Nick Fury's TV show. I don't even remember the name. Don't watch that. Completely skip this. Go to this instead. If you
Yeah,
ever
right.
even
Yeah.
thought about that one, just completely skip that one. That's boring. I don't know what the hell they want to do with that kind of stuff. If you want people dying, you definitely can go watch that show, because that's what basically we were doing left, right, and center. But
Yeah.
yeah, um,
But again, there's no stakes. I watched that Nick Fury thing. I did end up watching the whole thing. There's
mm,
really no stakes in any of it. I mean, there never really is. Like, let's be honest, it's all superhero television.
no,
It's
I think
always people can come back from the dead. But it does get a bit boring when there never is any stakes and you know that they can just rewrite stuff. It becomes a if you don't have anything stronger to say, I'm going to be talking
yeah.
about that with one of these books today. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
have anything stronger to say on a particular subject, maybe just stay
Mm-hmm.
away from it. Like if you're going to dive into some like maybe darker material or spy material or these mistrust issues that Nick Fury was attempting to deal with, that whole kind of psychological aspect, you've really got to like dive in and really, like really try to give it all, like instead of kind of having the surface level, I don't know, the surface level of dealing with it, it just kind of comes off as real flat. But again, that also goes with expectations because, as we've said a million times on this show, at the end of the day, you have to accept what you're watching, which is mainstream superhero television. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to give you anything very subversive. Of course, they're not going to deal with things in a darker way. Like that's just not their thing. That's not what they're there for. So it's sort of, you have to accept what you get with those shows, right? So yeah.
Well,
I'm
even
glad we
the
finished it though, because I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it until we talked last time
yeah.
of about it. That kind of reminded me. It's like, oh, I should give it a shot because we enjoyed the first season quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
There was some good stuff in it, and
Yeah.
so I'm glad we went with it.
Every single actor they chose, I enjoyed them performances, and of course he is the Tommy is the glue. In the end of the day, he's the main point for you to be interested in actors'
Yeah,
ways of dealing with that kind of a persona. He had to put that on a TV show, and I think he did a tremendously good job. I mean, he's, at the end of the day, he's the high level of acting skills the guy has, and he portrays that. So you kind of care about him, especially when you had those moody. There was a lot of superhero moody stuff happening in the last episode, where like you really like, oh my god, he's gonna cry, he's gonna push those tears out, and he's very good at it. As by the way,
hmm yeah, he's a good actor,
so
man. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So he has that kind of level. So anyway, I enjoy Loki's
yeah,
TV persona, to be honest, quite a lot. So I
hmm
think I found it hilarious when he was put like punched to a pulp by Hulk on the tower. That was most
yeah,
hilarious scene. I still remember
yeah,
it. I still laugh every single time I think about it. So like that kind of things is just in like how much things he wanted to achieve but never did. And if that's really like, I am rooting for that kind of people, because I always like the
right.
little guy who's, or not, he's not a little guy, he's kind of not successful enough god, comparing to
Yeah,
Thor
yeah.
and his, beautiful blonde locks, like that's really difficult to get the
That's
point
the one
across.
thing I will say about the show that was an extreme positive, just from like a show making stand viewpoint. I
Mhm.
loved the look of it. I loved the look of the world. I loved the camera shots in it. I loved
Mhm.
like the making of it. I thought was really exceptional. It really felt like Marvel trying to do a uh fuck, the guy that did Isle of Dogs and Life Aquatic and those movies.
Oh
It
yeah,
felt
yeah.
like one of his movies where it was this real kind of front on, very kind of staged, and just the
Yeah.
world kind of everything looked like the set design I thought was incredible, like really,
Mhm.
really impressive. So it really felt like they were going for some of that too,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty neat. Especially, I mean, they had Kokono's in there as well too, who's also been in his movies. So it makes sense. I wonder if that's where it came from. And Tom is an executive producer as well too, I think,
Mhm.
on Loki. So I'm sure there was trying to bring a little bit of that to it as well. But that side of it was pretty impressive for,
Mhm.
again, a superhero TV show. That stuff has it's not needed in that world whatsoever. So I thought it was good that at least they were trying to do a little something, keep people entertained as they were making the product, right? So
Are you talking about Wes Anderson? Is that the
yeah,
guy we're
that's it.
talking about?
That's the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wes Anderson. Yeah,
I'm not very good with names, so I'm just like, is it?
yeah.
Because I do like enjoy. I haven't seen this latest movie though.
No, I
What's it
haven't
called?
seen it yet either.
What is it called now? I forgot the name again.
I don't remember.
If
Then he's got a couple on Netflix as well too. There's a couple that he's released just on Netflix
mm,
that are based on some kids' books, and one of them stars what's his name from Doctor Strange, whatever that actor's name is. There, he's in one of them.
Cumberbatch.
Cumberbatch, yeah, he stars in
Oh,
one of them. Yeah, have a look at Wes Anderson Netflix trailers on YouTube after this stream is over. Then go and look, and you'll see those trailers.
oh yeah. Talking about Netflix once again, they released a Scott Pilgrim TV series. So Scott Pilgrim,
Okay.
the movie I absolutely love, the
Yep.
comic book everybody should know about, and if you don't know, or you kind of want to introduce somebody to comics, you can introduce to Scott Pilgrim. Definitely fantastic, especially the first one, the first series of Scott Pilgrim in generally of the creator. So we created a TV show. So we used Japanese movie or TV, I guess, animation house to
Mm,
put that go, and they kept every single actor's voices from the movie, which
mm-hmm,
was one of my favorite movies anyway to watch. I liked all Chris Evans's that part in that movie. So they created a TV show now, and you can watch it on Netflix, and everything is like almost watching the movie, but in chunks rather than. But there's some couple of surprises because with the first episode after I watched, so Scott Pilgrim, when he gets into a fight with the first evil boyfriend or evil
mm-hmm.
whatever league boyfriend, he kind of dies. So because he doesn't
Okay.
die in the movie, and I was like, what happened? But anyway, so I don't know what did they have some more maybe interesting information to disclose, but it feels like comic book. It looks like comic book. It has fantastic soundtrack. So far, first
Ah,
episodes
cool.
went like a breeze, and there's already all episodes available, I presume. I
Yeah,
think it's
nice.
eight episodes. I think they have. So all
Hmm.
the movie voice actors are there. So all
Oh
the
yeah.
actors who was in the movie, they are voiced the same. So like the main Scott Pilgrim voice is that guy who never ages. What is his name? Sarah.
Yeah, yeah,
Michael
yeah.
Sarah,
Michael
isn't that?
Michael Cera. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Canadian blood. Yes.
He's fantastic. That guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super Bad is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
he's
Well,
phenomenal in it.
I love them as Scott Pilgrim. I think it's fantastically portrayed him because it's just those
Yeah,
moments where the awkward scenes is absolutely fantastic in it. And of
yeah.
course, you have all the other ones. All the chick, which I completely forgotten the name, Ramona Sag. She's in there. She's in Star Wars now as well.
Okay.
Anyway, I forgot her name. Mary something something. Three names like.
Yeah.
Names, and I'm just blanking them. Anyway, so yeah, so highly recommend if you haven't watched it or movie, or you haven't even got interested in Scott Pilgrim. It's
Yeah.
beautiful way art style created by the creator.
That's cool.
And I highly recommend it. I think even Lillian would probably love it because it's a love
Mm-hmm.
story. It has plenty of beautiful colors. It's kind of like, the angst teenager part of this thing. So
Hmm.
I think she was exposed to that already. So highly recommend. I think it's great time to spend just watching that. So,
Yeah, cool.
and it's comic
Yeah, maybe we'll
related.
check
So
it
why
out.
not?
Try to download it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And oh, did you manage to watch that Bones of Crow or Crow of Bones of Crow? That's
No, I haven't. I haven't yet. No, no.
yeah, yeah. That
I'm still.
I
I
understand
still got the
why.
list.
It's quite. I haven't passed 2 episodes yet. I passed one and a
Mm,
half episodes, and it became like so dark. Like all that scenes and cruelty and all that kind of
yeah,
difficult to watch.
yeah. I'll definitely watch it, but just haven't gotten around to it. We started
Hmm.
watching Firefly again. I've been on my
Oh,
Firefly kick, so we've been watching that show all over again. We're almost done
yeah.
it. Actually, we kind of started
Wow.
firing. So yeah,
Jeez.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So
Yeah.
it's an easy watch.
Mm.
So should we talk
Comics.
comic type
Yep.
books?
Yep. Go
Start.
on. Let's start with that one, so we
Yeah,
can
sure.
get. We were talking about this, but we didn't really,
Yeah,
because Terrence wasn't hasn't read it yet. So Sacrifice number
that's right.
4 has come out this last past month. If you haven't guys read it, it's Rick Remendez and Max Furuyama and Dave McCain compilation of beauty so far. 4 issues in,
Yeah.
I'm sold. You still sold it after 4 issues?
Yeah, I think you were kind of hinting at it last week, like that
Yeah,
this one kind of
has
puts
some.
things in more perspective. If
Yeah.
anything, this one sells me a little bit more. Like, and
Oh,
again, I think what we talked about from like issue 1 to issue 2
yeah.
existed to issue 2 to issue 3 and issue 3 to issue 4. Every single his
Hmm.
pacing and storytelling, I think, is kind of top notch. I really like the way he kind of parses the information and brings you into this intro, because I still do feel like now we're starting to get into the meat of it. We've had these intros, we've been introduced to characters, been introduced to the world, that
Hmm.
now the next issue we're going to see like the next step before we really get into it. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm digging it. This one was a really quick read, but I
Yeah.
think that might have also been like I was really excited to read it. I was really looking forward to what was going to come up. So yeah, I
I,
mean,
li- I
I dig it. I dig it.
I like that the father of the one of sacrifices has been taken into a full shot, or he's been exposed as a character. I thought maybe we will not see him again,
Mhm.
but he's back, and which is kind of gives you a dimension of how much they have to give and how much they do not care to who gets to sacrifice. And
Yeah,
he's taking it completely, utterly like you're supposed to,
he's devastated.
losing.
Yeah.
Yeah, losing your son to something he knows is not going to come back from, because
Hmm.
none of beforehand that were coming back. So they say we keep on getting we give you kids, and what else do you want from us, which is kind of really how
Yeah.
it felt. Another thing I want to point out, how beautiful the art and colors goes in, because he has a good colorist with him. This shadow work with the fireworks going out and him,
Hmm.
it's such a good scene to look at, and so much to celebrate by not having so much lines to expose it in black color, but it makes the whole sense of it, because the
Yeah.
directions of the light where it comes from, the background is far distances. And that's what I'm saying about one of the things what you I always like what Rick Remender manages to employ is the artists and creators and colorists and all the group of people he surrounds himself with does the job like this, because it works and it gives you emotion. It
Hmm.
tells you the grief, without telling you anything in the panels. There's a couple of words in here, but like you actually see the absolute turmoil the fathers have to go through, or
Well, and
he is
also
going through.
questioning things too, right? Like
Yeah.
not only the grief, but he's questioning things in those panels
Yeah.
too. Like the gods
And
created us, isn't that right? They demand a sacrifice,
yeah.
so we all fall in line. We do as we're told. We give them our
Yeah.
children. Like he's really like this is unfair. He's really vocalizing the
Yeah.
unfairness of the whole fucking thing.
And all this party and all these blue glasses they're
Hmm.
about to take in, it's
Yeah.
extremely important if you read the issue prior to that. So I think this is as you say, I think it's that's why, maybe, I don't know, I think he took a break because he wanted just to have a creative break, but you can see the difference when he doesn't have to churn out something too much or too often. And I think that's what beauty about Rick Mendes' work, like writing, and the way he's that create, like creative team can work together with, because it seems to be it's been thought out, like it wasn't rushed into it. It seems to be that they had actually like a plan how they're going to expose us to all this information, and being
Mhm.
patient with it as well. Because the only thing and another thing I'm going to tell you one thing with Rick Mendes writing, he doesn't make you feel bored, or he doesn't make you feel
Mhm.
like you need to, like, oh come on, just come out with other issue and explain everything to us. He's gradually giving you and makes you excited about what you're going to get next. And that's why I like
Yeah.
reading his stuff, because of that. Because it's not only that you like, oh, I know where you're going with the story, come on, I know exactly what's the reward with, but I just want to see what your take about it is. And in
Mhm.
here, it's more like, okay, I'm giving information chunk by chunk, see how you feel, if you want to follow me through the story. And so far I'm completely invested in it, and I'm always are with him, because he always gives me surprise. I never expected it. I kind of expected, but how he delivers the surprise is also different as well to my expectations. So it's entertaining, definitely. And yeah,
Hello, hello, Andrew
so yeah,
Lopez.
hello. So I really love this,
I
and
never read the entire of Seven to Eternity, so
yeah.
I don't know if this is similar. Did you read all of Seven to Eternity?
I started it, but it wasn't some. I was too grand for me, and somehow wasn't too. I mean, no, what I'm talking about. I have read quite a lot of it actually, but I don't know if I completely fully invested, because I
Hello,
was
Miss
like,
Phil.
I think his deadly class has completely taken over. But this lady
Yeah, right.
here, she's gonna
Yep.
be. You see her face reaction, so without
The
spoilers,
daughter, right?
hopefully. Yeah, the
Yeah.
daughter. I think she's the one who's gonna make a lots of decisions which will not be very favorable to the gods we were introduced for. It seems to be that she has a different idea how you have to deal with your own
Hmm.
mortality, I could say. But yeah, and I am really thoroughly enjoying her, and I hope that he's gonna get more information with her, because I
I
think it
mean,
seems
it
to be
looks
that
like she's
she's the
going to be the
one.
focus of the story, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
she's going to be the focus.
Because
I
she's
would.
always,
There's a cynical part of me that hopes that by the
yeah,
end of the journey, she falls in line, and then she becomes one of the gods too, and just kind of continues with the
yeah.
what everything that is that they set up. That's a real cynical part of me that I think would be fantastically brave to go that way with the story.
Well, one
Number
of the
four.
number four, yeah, yeah, number four. By the way, just to show you the cover. That's my cover. That's, I think, is cover A. Anyway, but this lady here, the moon lady, she's the
Mhm.
one who also is kind of that god where not everybody likes her too much, because she has way too strong an opinion, because everybody's falling in line for the king or the father of the girls. So she is the one who is probably also going to give some sort of storyline pointers, but I think definitely the daughter is the one which are we. And don't forget the one, the sacrificer, who's the father we were showing you guys in this couple of panels. So I think
Mhm.
he still has a lot of to say. I hope. Well, that's my hope is. That's what I'm hoping for.
Mhm.
So yeah, so far as a whole thing, it's really rewarding. For 4 issues I am in. One more.
Yeah.
I don't know how you, because he has such a big reveal here. How you going to, because let's say and for the the first volume to end is 2 more issues, yeah, it's like 6 issues usually
Mhm.
the image usually works with. So I wonder what else he has up in his sleeve to end up the first volume, because has to
Yeah.
something happen to us to go even more excited, because this is how it works, isn't it, the comic world? Because you have to
Yeah.
entice people to come back to a next volume, let's say this way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like next issue, it all really hinges on the next issue for me personally.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like the next one is going to be like the big push to
yeah.
then have something that sort of gets resolved and pushed a little further with issue 6. But I want to see now, like now I feel like now I'm thoroughly done with like the lead up. I feel like
Mhm.
next issue, I need to now get into what this story is going to be about. Just as a reader, I feel like I'm with him the whole way so far, but the next issue has to be that next step, unless he does something that's incredible and totally I can't think about because I'm not a writer. But just
Mhm.
from a reading satisfaction perspective, I want the
Yeah.
next issue to be something. Like, I want something to knock me on my ass, to like, here's now the story, here's what we're going to dive into. And he might not do it, which is totally his thing. Yeah.
Let's just hope that you're not gonna get too disappointed, because you are putting
No.
that. You're lifting
No,
lifting it.
no, I'm not putting it up anywhere. I just want to see, like, I'm
Yeah,
just curious where it's going to go because I feel like we have a setup
yeah,
now. We know the characters well enough. We
yeah.
know how the daughter feels about stuff. We know
Mm-hmm.
how that other god feels about stuff. We know
Yeah,
how the rest of the gods just completely take it
yeah,
all on and are completely accepting of it. So we get all that now. I feel like we have a
yeah,
good idea of where people sit on like the good and evil kind of scale, right? So, but now you need to give us something that brings
yeah.
it that next level up, to whatever direction that is.
And just to mention, I think Black Science still worth people's time and attention.
Yeah.
But they use advertising at the back of this one that's saying that he's going to have a reprint, so deluxe edition for 10th anniversary edition. So,
Yeah. Wow.
excuse me, how long has it been? This kind of stuff and comes out, you're like, oh my god, am I always been reading comic books for this long? Anyway, so
Wow.
it's time traveling tale, and for some people who doesn't like it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Matteo Scorella is another artist which I absolutely loved watching
Yeah.
progressing, and you can see, I'll show you other work he has been doing for the bigger two companies, which I have one of his stuff which came out recently, we'll talk about it.
Hmm.
Who's I mean
Yeah.
you
Cool. So it's
are we
good
talking?
shit so far.
Yeah, yeah, so I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Um, maybe I'll talk about this one. So yesterday, went to Saturday. I usually hit a couple of places. One of the places is a flea market that's just up the road that way. It's about a 2-minute drive up the road, and there's this new guy there who has a he mostly deals in music, but he's been buying comic collections and he's been
Mm-hmm.
selling comics as well too. So he's got a bunch of like graphic novels, and I was digging around yesterday and he was selling them for, I think he said 60% off of the cover price is what he was selling. So he had not one but two of the Wake books. I have the first 3 that I had found, I think, in Minneapolis, when I went with Colin out there to see
Yeah.
Ryan Carey and people, and I enjoyed the first 3 a fair bit. So what they did, I guess, for volume 4 and 5, they put them just in one thicker book. It ended up costing me like $6. So there's it compared to like a comic. So a nice oversized volume. Unfortunately, what they did with 6 and 7 is they then shrunk the book, which I'm not really looking forward to reading, because even just flipping through this one, it was tough to read it because the print was much smaller. This was a good size to read kind of the print itself, because they're pretty dense pages. I enjoyed the first 3. I think I mostly enjoyed this one. I wanted to talk a bit about this final story, and it sort of ties in with what we were talking about with Loki. So this final story, the second story in here. So the idea, Wake is this alliance of kind of cultures that are on this sort of traveling space station, I guess, and they're going around to different worlds, and they're looking whether or not they're going to interact with those different planets. So they go down to the planet to see how evolved they are, see if they're ready to kind of become part of like the alliance of space countries, I guess, right? So of course, on this kind of vessel, on this Wake vessel, there is a group of people who are at kind of the bottom of the food chain, and that's what this particular story starts talking about. And it's very reminiscent of current world situations now, Israel, Palestine. We have one of the cultures that is sending suicide bombers out and stuff, and they're kind of trying to get their point across through violence because nobody's listening to them. So I was immediately intrigued, because I like when, like I said before, I do enjoy when comics and entertainment dive into some real world issues, but it has to be handled in kind of like, you got to be brave. I personally feel you got to actually, if you're going to explore these kind of real world things, even in all science fiction, I think you have to commit. You have to commit to exploring it. So I was on board with this one until kind of how it sort of wrapped up. It really wrapped up very, very weak. where it led me the same kind of thing, like with the Nick Fury show. It was like, well, what was the point of that if you weren't actually going to explore this topic? It sort of leaves off on a point of our main character, Navi is her name. She ends up getting kidnapped by this other group of people, this other race, and she kind of builds a bond with them. And she ends up speaking on their behalf in kind of the court system of Wake and getting them off so they don't actually get punished, even though a couple of them have committed suicide. So it kind of ends on this note of, regardless of what your issues are as people, you have to trust the system, which is the whole fucking point of the beginning of the story, is that they don't trust the system because the system isn't helping them. And even at the end, there's still this talk of like, well, it does take baby steps. It just takes these steps. Most of the people on the council still don't agree with them. So it was a real letdown when it came to the end of it, where it was just like, it wasn't enough to make me hate the book. I'm going to read the rest of them for sure. But again, it was just one of those things of like, if you're going to tackle these kind of issues, I just felt like this is a storyline that could have gone a couple of volumes to, if you're going to introduce an interesting concept like this. I feel like they could have used more time to kind of investigate it. And each of these books is 40 something pages, 46 pages for each of the volumes in this one book here. So they did have a good chunk of time to start that work and then continue it with later volumes. But flipping through the next one, they sort of leave this story behind. They almost take that kind of sci-fi approach of, we're just going to tell these one-off stories. This is the world and we're going to tell these stories. So it was kind of a weaker episode where I've been kind of enjoying it for the most part because it's sort of very surface level, explored some of these ideas. And I mean, I guess that's sort of been a theme throughout to some degree. These kind of people who are these groups of people that are misunderstood. The first story is a similar thing as well, too. It's this one planet that has this tiered system, and it's based on when these eggs sprouted all these civilizations on this planet. The first ones there naturally took power, and then later generations, when different races got dropped off, they kind of became a lesser power, and there was a little bit of a shift in it there. They dealt with it a little bit differently, some of those same ideas. So both of the stories in this volume sort of fit together, even though they're not focused on the same group of people. I don't know if any of that made sense. I feel like I'm rambling at this point, but it's a good series. It's just difficult when you start to dig into things that are real world and you don't kind of take it all the way. Do you think the writing improved? I remember you weren't that impressed with the other volumes. Yeah, I don't know if it's improved. I think it's about the same level, honestly. The writing is the same level. But again, it's one of those things, because it was so cheap, I felt like it was easy enough to get into, easy enough to pick up and give it another shot. I will say, though, I had some of the similar things with the first story where I was having a real hard time at first to kind of get back into the world, where some books that you end up reading, even with the gap, there's always a little bit, for me personally, it takes a minute to adjust again, but I do adjust pretty quickly. This one, it takes me a little bit longer to kind of get into the flow of, what are we doing here? They don't do the greatest job of setting up each individual story. It takes them a little longer to kind of get to that setup. Sort of the opposite we were talking about with Rick Remender, whereas he's really good at that setup. He's really good at introducing things and leading you in very, very nicely, where this one, I don't necessarily need hand holding, but I need a little bit more hand holding in a book like this than I do in some other things, So yeah. Interesting stuff. I think that was all that they published in English. Sorry, what?
Do you think it's because it's a subject they trying to use as a part of the comic book story?
It might be. I think maybe it's the subject where they're not maybe as sure of what their subject is. Again, I think they're really trying to do like a Star Trek kind of thing. Like, here's the USS Enterprise, and now we're going to put it in these situations where we can tell these little stories. It's the same thing, but with the Enterprise, you're dealing with a very small crew. This one, you're dealing with an entire society filled with different species, filled with different alien races. It's sort of this traveling universe. So it makes it even harder to start to find your way in. when you're dealing with like, okay, so what was the relationship with these two? I'm being introduced to this guy. Was he in another one? How did they feel about each other? So there was a lot of that because there's so many characters. So I feel like it's too wide of a scope to kind of really make it easy to ease into the story. It really took me most of the book to kind of really ease into it, where I'm going to read the other one tonight, probably sit tonight and read the other one since I'm in that mind space. But I am disappointed that they decided to shrink it though. Because that, as we've talked about 10 million times, the 10 million in first, it's just too small. I like the oversized. I like the album format. I think this is really great. It's maybe a little more difficult reading one that's double volume. But yeah. So anyway, that's Wake. Morvan and Boucher are the names of the creators, and I think this came out early 2000s in English here, 2002 or something. 2003 is the NBM English translation, so 20 years old at this point.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
That's a bad thing that they decided afterwards, like maybe they ran out of money for the sheer size of it. That's why they printed on the smaller format, because they still had the content and they didn't want to disappoint the creators who got involved. It could be
more
that.
than like. Yeah, it probably wasn't something that was selling so well, so they had their contract to do the next two, and they're like, "Screw it, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna downsize it." Yeah, originally it was French, Damien, 2001, Guy Delcourt Productions. So I think it was French. It doesn't give any more information than that. So.
Interesting, because the yeah, it's kind of sad, because but most of the time I think this what is the price tag for one? And the back should be saying what's the price tag.
Back in the day, this one was $14.95 American for like 100. Like, that's not a bad price for something that's this thick, So it cost me $6, I think, when I bought it here used.
Yeah, but the thing is, when like, I don't know how, because I'm not the one who's market driven for. I'm not really much into magazine format, comic related things. I do enjoy them. Don't get me wrong when I get them, but when you have the pull, like I never have one in pull. Let's say this way. So I never pulled one out for like monthlies, because I found that 15, let's say 15 pounds or $15 a chunk, it's quite a lot to invest in, because then I have to think my pull is how it works. But just this is my from my point of view. So I'm not sure. Anyway, so next thing I'm going to talk about in that note, you send me this for sure. Has to be, because I don't recall that I was buying it, because this one.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. So this one contains of 4 issues which were released by Vertigo /DC/ whatever. And I thought I don't have enough. Maybe that's why I wasn't reading. But then, of course, I looked at my CLZ app and it says nothing missing. You only have. Then I, of course, went to do a bit more research, and they did only produce 4 of these. So this is a kind of like a short stories in each issue. None of them they got related to. Some covers were related to some other story, previous one, but they all short stories by a very, very good crew of creators, and that should be probably the one of the draws for you to maybe get hold of. And I bet you can find them for cheap as chips at the moment. This originally was published in 1998, but they managed to accrue quite a good crew of people to work on it. This is very, very schmancy, by the way. So this is nice. The guy sitting, open the toilet and say, what do you want? Like he's sitting, enjoying. Then you realize, what's next door to him? It's not really easy to concentrate to do whatever you want to do. So yeah, very, very interesting comic or cover for the first. And
for sure it is.
And they take your attention straight away, because they have creators like Brian Azzarello. They have also Frank Whiteley on art, Meg Hollisworth in colors, Tim Bradstreet. And when they see this, and of course you know who it is, if you don't, is Frank Whiteley's, and this goes all the way throughout all the issues. So if you want to tear them up and put them together, you probably would have a beautiful poster of the gangsters. And the stories were hit and miss for me, to be honest. Some of them were like really hit, some of them weren't so much. It's all related by gangsters. They all related to criminal enterprises and or whatever, people who's involved in that era. Gangsters, basically. No wonder it's called Gangland of this series. And this first one, actually, probably one of the stronger ones, written by Brian Azzarello, and it is drawn by Tim Bradstreet. Familiar voice, but I can't put name like to anything else he done. But it's about the guy who was part of the group of gang or mafia, and he was jailed, and he became an informant, and he changed his life. He moved into this lovely house in a suburban area. He's coming back. Oh shit, he drops his eggs, but what is inside, he finds the house. It's really gruesome. He's the first thing he sees, a dog dead and his wife, and then there is a guy who's supposed to be the one who is basically keeping him safe with nobody disclosed information. So one of the FBI guys, I think, or agents, who is like, you don't want to see what's behind there and what's happening. And of course, he has a family. And spoiler alert, the family is dead. But who is the killers? That was the good point of it, which to your no surprise, but I'm not gonna say, and I'm not gonna show. The Frank Whiteley story was absolutely goddamn hilarious and sad at the same time. It's about how important is the family and the wedding, and how crucial part of the wedding is not the people who get married to each other, but actually the family they get to marry into. And Frank Whiteley's art is as stunning as always you would remember.
Mhm.
Frank Whiteley, so from the 90s. And I think I've heard interviews several times that 90s wasn't his best. Apparently, he says he was still learning. But if you learn this in this level, I don't know what else can you, like how far can you go? But I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed. And also, the killer is very surprising. So I think this first, uh, the first, well, spoiler alert, the killer is the a boy who's taking the rings to the married couple. Come on, a kid who's killing. Anyway, so that's what I'm saying. But I think one of the best from this issue, I think this issue is the strongest of them all, to be honest, because I absolutely love Dave Gibbons. And Dave Gibbons is writing and drawing in here. And if you're a
Oh,
fan
nice.
of,
Yeah.
if you're a fan of him, I think you'll enjoy this one. So it's about a guy who's called the Bear, and it's the guy who one of the mafiosos tried to get rid of him, and he shot him and to a pulp where they were trying, and you see a operating theater, we're trying to save him, and they were saying here, get whatever he needs, cost is not important here. So he has money behind him, or somebody really wants to save him, or he's accruing to some money, and he's on the vengeance, and it's as cruel as you would think of. So this is the guy who's called the Bear, and he's going after his previous boss, who's basically tried to get rid of him, and his only revenge for the boss is completely destroy his family and kids, and like kill them all. And we found out that the doctor who is supposed to work for the boss, he was employed by the Bear as well, and he gets bitten by the doctor because like he is gonna basically put the knife into his back, and then to doctor's surprise, Bear has other things in mind because he gives him a drink, and the doctor dies together with his own employee. Quite a really crude story, but the way he says, those stories where you read everything's na 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 na, and he says like to his henchman, the Bear says to henchman, because he says, have fun, or says, and woman and children, Mishka, and he says, have fun, but I want them dead by morning, all of them. So he's kind of like, there's no regrets here, do whatever the hell you want with the family of the boss. And himself, he's gonna get his revenge, kind of thing. And Mishka in Russian is called Bear, so Misha. Anyway, so
Mm.
really strong this one. And then
Mhm.
from their point onwards, you could kind of like the covers, Bolland cover here, which is fantastic, really cool. The other cover here, you have Fabry, of course,
Yeah,
fantastic. If you're
nice.
a
Yeah.
old Preacher's fan, you Fabry is there. And I don't know who's, I think I don't know who's artist, but this is the bear again. But he wasn't part of this issue 4, and so the issue 2 had this is a treat as well. Once again, guess who's that?
Corbin. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, they collected quite a few not a few, a lot of superstars to get to do this 4-issue series, and he's awesome. It's a bit like this is like it's perfect story for Corbin because it's weird, and it's the way it ends. It's kind of that mysterious part. It's almost kind of
Mhm.
Hellboyish, kind of folklore tale about the guy who smiles and the kid who grew up in the same neighborhood. We kind of got involved together. One became bad one, another one kind of sort of being that bad guy. He went to the jail, but he came back. But he's always have this crazy smile on his face, and he always follows the other guy who became kind of villain all the time, and he hated him, and he didn't understand why the guy with the smile keeps on following him. So he comes back from jail, he still smiles, so he's growing up. He can't shake him off, and he comes back with a smile and always asks him, how are you doing, everything is okay. So the guy's patience has lacked, and he decided to kill him, so he shoots him in the head. The guy's still stalking while he's putting
Mhm.
cement over him, and he keeps saying to him, you got it, man, you got it. And he keeps smiling, so he thinks he got rid of him. Put him in, like in here, you have that trough. He's like putting everything nice and neat, everything is correct. Finally got rid of him. To his own surprise, the guy is out and he's still
Of course. Yeah.
smiling. And the story's end of the storyline is that he's been killed by it. How and who is not really told, because it's a
Mhm.
mystery part of the story, like the way it ends. And then you have this one by Jamie Delano, who's famous for Hellblazer's writing. Yeah. And it's called Big Shot series. The art is Randy DeBerg. Have you heard of him? I'm not sure if I have.
No, it's not a name I'm familiar with. No.
So the story about Big Shot, so like it's like about those office skyscraper or like bosses who has a guy who's working for them who wants to take their own space, they place, they take the place, but there's always a girl behind it, and she's a bit of mystery because she's actually the one who's calling the shots, and the guys who take over, they age after years, but she still looks as pretty, as young as it always has been. And then she basically finds a replacement for them and kills them. So it's a very simple storyline, but it has kind of very good, kind of interesting meaning. How, no matter if how big boss you are, there's a female behind it, and you never know what you have, who's in charge. You know what I mean? So, and as I say, it wasn't like for the couple last ones. I think this story I actually kind of like fairly enjoyed. What is it called? What is it called? Why not? Can I see what's the story? What? I can't see the story name. Um, it's about the dentist who's bored, and in the way it starts the storyline, his wife comes to the morgue to see his corpse, and she doesn't understand. She's distraught, and he's like, "Why he keeps smiling?" And there's a story when and it shows you behind the back story of him working at the dentist office, and he gets a visit of his old mate who's basically looking for somebody to patch him up because he has a
Mm.
gangster. He goes into his office. Oh my God, I remember you. You were from the high school, blah blah blah. Like that nerd guy who became a dentist. La la la, how
Mhm.
funny. So he comes, patches and stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, have some laughing gas." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, this is just gonna help you knock you out so you don't feel the pain." He sorts him out, and we have his conversation. He tells him, "I'm so bored of my life. I want some fun. Do you mind to take me be part of the crew?" And he's like, "I don't know if you can do this. So, but then he decides to do this. So the dentist decides to join the crew, and he gets to be joined to them. But to his own demise, you already probably know it in your head. He gets shot dead because he comes up into situations where he shouldn't have been, and that's how he got shot. But he's still smiling, apparently, because
Mhm.
while he was got shot, he inhaled some of those gases because they were having a party in his office again, and things bad people came after him, and that's how, it's a kind of good reveal. And this by Darko McCann, which I've never heard, and Killian Plunkett as well, creator team. But I enjoyed the storyline. It's kind of like, the story ending, but kind of think you don't. And this the best
Yeah, the
probably.
journey is still good, even though you know the ending. Yeah.
And this is Edward Baker's story called Small Time, which kind of interesting. It actually really feels like Edward Baker, what you have kind of now, because he's
Yeah.
famous for those kind of like small tale stories. But he's working with Eric Shanover, and Shanover who has worked in Fables. He worked lots of in Vertigo titles, and I think I am familiar with his work, but I can't place it what exactly he done. I know that he done lots of Fables and Vertigo work while the Vertigo was Vertigo in that time. It's
Hmm.
about the crew of kids who growing up in the neighborhood, and we have the older kid who's of course in charge of every other smaller kid, and he creates this gang where they start robbing people because the state they were living, they have this window in the garage because they all no it's a state. Every single house is built the same way, so in order to make his kind of like life better, he decides to employ these 12-year-old kids and make them drink and all that stuff and get money by stealing things from other people's houses. And there's other kids who basically wants to be kind of an example and gets into place of becoming one because one of the siblings is involved in the gang. It's really well told storyline. It's quite wordy, to be honest, for
Hmm.
one single storyline. But it's Edward Baker. It's kind of like you almost got the whole life story in a couple of pages. This is how Edward Baker can write. He can disclose lots of information in several pages. But it wasn't like laborious reading. It was really entertaining. I'm not really maybe as excited about it, but it's just a short story. It's nothing to go screaming about. You kind of know the end. Like when the kids get involved, the parents always finds out. You got involved with and all that stuff. So yeah, it's really nice. I honestly thoroughly enjoyed
Yeah.
it as a short story for many issue series. It's fantastic if you want that kind of feel, because I like criminal
Yeah.
writing in generally. I'm getting involved, but this. So the last issue, there's Gangland. This when dogs or animal gets involved in storyline, it it pulls my heartstrings quite a lot. We free. I still can't put myself to read that story because of all the animals got involved with Grant Morrison writing. Do you know? Have you ever read it? We free.
I haven't read it. I know which one you're talking about, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Marvel Oz books. Oh, okay, cool. That's why I was thinking I knew Shanover from somewhere. So yeah, so this pup or German Shepherd looks like it. He was found almost to death, and he was put in a vet's house because of the gang involvement. He was bred to attack police people basically, and if he wasn't doing it, he gets beaten by his owner. As you can see, his shiny leather boots kicking the dog to no end, and they fighting for his life. He gets to survive, and one of the coppers decides to basically employ him or give him a second chance, because there's this a program in the police academy where they kind of like need dogs who can sniff, for drugs and all that stuff. And they to breed a puppy and teach him takes too long time, and they need some dogs like that as quick as possible. But the problem is that he's attacking police guys rather than doing whatever they want to do. So they decides to basically reteach him, saying to basically reprogram his brain, saying that we are the good guys. The people who were your owners prior to that, who were treating you unwell, they are the bad guys. And it seems to be
Hmm.
as a really good story. He's doing a really good job. To his own bad luck, because narration is by the dog. He's basically telling his life story, and he's saying there's like a police chief in charge has changed, and his plan to this is not acceptable. We don't want him dog. He put him back in the pan, and then he while there's this raid happening. So the dog decides to take his own life into hands, and he escapes, and he goes look for the drugs they in that raid in this tall building. He goes in, and to the dog's luck, he finds his owner who was beating him because, oh, you see those shiny boots. It's a
Hmm.
telltale sign. He says he gets really excited about it, but he knows he's doing something wrong, so he attacks him. And what also he says to himself, like, or to us, he says, I could have just stopped it because I didn't. I just want to, like life is life kind of thing. You treat it for one, you got treated by. So he
Yeah.
basically rips the previous owner to nothingness, gets put in the pound. And in here, which is the worst thing, no more trying to do things right and getting them wrong. Yeah, I know. Walkies, basically, they're going to put him to death because there's the
Mm.
dude coming in. So it's kind of like, why are you
Yo,
doing
that's
this?
incredible. Yeah, that's incredible. I don't
So,
remember that issue at all. I don't think I
so
read that
that's
one.
this is the strongest story of this issue 4 to
Yeah,
me.
nice.
Kind of bizarre end to this issue. I didn't like this kid's story that much, but there's the Richard Brunning and Mark Ciacello. His creative team is called Electric China Light Death. This is the start of the storyline. There's these two gangsters going into Chinatown and having conversation about saying how he hates Chinatown. Is like this, people shouldn't be here, blah blah blah. And the bosses have this idea of taking over the building site, so they have to go to this Majestic Dragon restaurant to tell the owner that they're taking over. Pack your basically luggages and leave. So to they kind of surprised, the owner says, no, I'm not doing this, and you suddenly see this girl with a doll getting into pictures, and I was like, what is going on here? I don't understand, like kind of you start questioning straight away while you're reading the story. So they still having conversations, still giving him the bad things. And they, of course, what they do is start threatening, like they start talking to each other. So one gets angry at each other, takes the gun out, and he shoots. And who he shoots is the girl. And you're like, oh, okay, that's it's like, what is it? So, and they give to tell the owner, so was it your daughter? Oh, sorry, this is part of the job, kind of thing. And when you turn the page, you don't realize what's happening. So the guys are walking off the restaurant. Everything seems to be until this dragon leaps out of nowhere and attacks
Yeah,
them.
great
And
pages there.
it's the girl. So take it or leave it. What happened there? And it
Right.
says in here, because they asked the question to the owner saying, why, so is this your daughter? And he's like, no, she's supposed to be their protector. And they like laugh, oh, it's a girl who's your protector. And I guess that's why she's a protector, because
Go
she turned.
don't close that. Yeah.
Oh
That
wait,
page
sorry.
there on the right, that page on the right with the dragon. No, sorry,
Oh
to where you were there.
yeah, that
Yeah,
one.
that page there on the right with
Sorry.
the dragon. That's really nice. It's an unfortunate page turn though if you turn the page now
Yes,
and look
this
at the
one's supposed to be
advertisement after
here.
that one.
Yeah, you're supposed to be, that page may be there, and then
And
you
then
have
look at
this.
that though. But look at
Yeah,
that advertisement, the way that it's laid out. It's laid
yeah,
out exactly the same way as that page before with it's blue on the right hand side.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, as I say, it's quite, like when you talk about it. But honestly, um, like you send me stuff, and I put I file this away nicely,
Yeah, yeah.
neatly. So I
Yeah.
know I can go in there and look. And it's like, what?
Mhm.
Surely, because I always think I've read it. Because when I file it, I usually think, okay, especially in this filing cabinet, usually
Yeah.
most of the stuff I kind of read or halfway through read, or I already know the information. But today somehow it was drawn in, like, because I kind of wanted to read something like that, kind of like I had the feel of
Mhm.
vertigo. So I saw this one, and I would take them out. It's like, surely I've read it already, because lots of vertigo read, so kind of you don't understand what you have finished reading or not. But then I
Mhm.
opened the first issue. I was like, surely I haven't, so I haven't read it. So it was a good. Thank you very much, by the way, for
Yeah,
sending
yeah,
me
no
those,
worries. Yeah.
because was you know it's always a treat when you have a need for vertigo. Those kind of little short story, a couple of issues are fantastic. Yeah, Brubaker and Roy story
It's
sound great. Yeah, yeah,
it's a great way to read too. Like sometimes that's exactly what you need. One
yeah.
book with a few short stories is a real nice
There,
it's nice
there
to
is,
kind of switch your brain that way. Hello
but
Gorvidal.
But as I say, the creators they have employed to get this, and also, by the way, people, if you don't want to look for single issues, the DC comic books have actually produced as a trade or
Oh, okay.
collected edition recently, actually. And so I think I saw, and I don't know, because I was looking for some information. I told you why is this? What did it come out for? And I think it's like $11 a book, a volume. So it's not
But
much to
then you
invest
don't
in.
get that beautiful front cover on issue number 1 there with the way
Oh
that
no,
opens
no,
up.
no! You don't
You
get
don't
that.
get that.
No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. Because it's the
Yeah,
sea
yeah.
now, so it's not vertical, so you can't have waste. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like that. So yeah. So but yeah, as I say, you
Well
probably
done.
definitely would find them in the cheap bins. I presume you
Oh
would.
yeah,
It's
man.
a
I'm sure they're in the
vertigo.
dollar bins.
But just for the creators, like you get Corbin, you get Brubaker, you get
Hmm.
David Lloyd, you have, like all the other ones, and they get involved.
Prime Vertigo era. Yeah.
Frank Quietly is inside, and also as another tidbit, which to get extra, Dave Gibbons I like a lot. Um,
Hmm.
you get this page, which is basically described as the past, or sort of like it's like a fun take of what bad guys, Brian Zerlo did this and that, like Frank Quietly,
Okay.
most educated brush Velo followed the incident in Glasgow when he locked his car door only to see his keys still hanging in the ignition, and the copper comes
Hmm.
to help him and tells him how to open your car with four things, like a ruler, a tape, and something like that. So it's just like creators who is going to be involved in one issue. It tells you a little bit like sort of a storyline, extra storyline about them, they gang life kind of thing, or they
Hmm.
got involved with the coppers or some situations in life. So it's really good. As I say, really cool 4 issue and great covers, by the way.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
absolutely fantastic creators. So yeah, surprise and
Cool.
thanks to Terrence. I
Yeah, no
was
problem.
treated.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, reread
Oh
V for
yeah.
Vendetta this week. Lloyd's art continues to impress me. Too bad he didn't draw the Watchmen as more wanted him to. I think was the
Mhm.
case. Yeah, yeah, yeah. V for Vendetta is damn good. I read it not too many years ago either. My son read it as well.
Singles
Yeah,
or in collected editions?
I've only got the collected. I don't have the singles. I've only got a collected edition of it.
I,
Yeah, I
I
don't know if I've
remember.
really seen the singles that much, to be honest.
Eh? Okay,
I
while you
don't know if I've
talk
ever seen
and
them that much.
while you talk, yeah, I'm gonna have a look if I can find them quickly to show to you.
Okay,
But
yeah, sure.
when you put in full screen, I'll go look for it. But
Okay,
they are really cool to have in singles. I
yeah,
remember looking for them. Oof, that used to be a
yeah,
job and a half. Very popular.
yeah, cool.
Hmm.
So I dug in this week. I dug into I started digging into Grendel. So I've got the 10-issue miniseries, War Child. So I read the first 5. Actually, I started reading them the week before, but I wanted to kind of tackle this one in 2 chunks, 2 separate readings of 5 issues each. So I'll show you the covers there first. Some Bisley stuff on the front there. There's 3 and 4 and 5. So first thing is first, I enjoyed it. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. I realize there's a lot about this world that I don't know. And that's one of the things that I think they do really well. So colored, written, and inked by Matt Wagner, penciled by Patrick McKeown, and color art by Mr. Bernie Moreau himself. So, and the coloring is almost distracting because I've been reading a bunch of Bernie Moreau's stuff. The coloring continually reminds me of Bernie Moreau's work, like with the Jam and things that I've read recently, or at least this year anyway. And that was one part that kind of, I don't know how well it worked for me. I felt like the art really took me out of it at times. So it made it hard to kind of decipher at times of how I'm reading this. Yes, there's comedic elements in it for sure, like purposefully, but I also feel like sometimes with the I think sometimes with this style, it takes you out of the story a little bit that is non-intentional, where it is kind of this more serious story about this kind of this child who are Grendel in this story. From what I understand about Grendel, there's always a different Grendel with each of these stories. It's someone else, and it's at this point almost like a, not quite a cult, but like a security force, almost like a special operatives type of force of people, with a lot of people kind of committing their lives to the way of the Grendel, and donning the mask and kind of living that life, kind of like, you know, the Mandalorians. You kind of get in there with you know, you make the commitment to be Mandalorian. That helmet never comes off, that sort of thing. So he's kind of rescued this child who's kind of the next in line. His father is dead. He's kidnapped him from the mother. And there is also the other thing I want to say, just while it reminds me, because that's a great panel. That so much reminds me of Richard Corbin, that panel. The look on that boy's face and the way it's colored, it's so Richard Corbin there. And that's
Agreed.
something I noticed a few times throughout, that there's a real Corbin feel to all of this. So it's, so far, it's kind of the standard fare of, you know, he's being chased. We're cutting back to the mother and her kind of world as she's looking to track them down. She also has a daughter that she's keeping kind of locked up. It feels like there's reasons that I haven't quite gleaned from the story yet. There's reasons beyond worried for her safety, but we haven't dug into those extremely deeply yet. So the one thing that I loved about this series is at the back of each. So first thing we start off with is in issue number 1, the back matter in this series is unbelievable, is what I'll say about this 10-issue series. And even if you're mildly interested in the world of Grendel, I would strongly recommend picking these up, even if the only thing you read is the back matter. So the first issue has him talking about, and he talked about this a little bit on the Kayfabe interview, about Grendel and the character, and why there was such a big gap, and what happened to the character, and the fight that he had to have with his previous publisher to get the rights back to this character. Even though he always had his creator rights with the character, he talks about it in here in depth, and in the Kayfabe thing, that one thing that people don't tell you is that if the company you're working for goes bankrupt, then that character becomes part of like their inventory. He uses a different word. Inventory is what's coming to my mind right now. It basically becomes kind of their property in that way, because now the bankruptcy stuff has to get sorted, and part of what their holdings are as a company is your book and is your character. So yes, you still have the rights to the character, but those dealings with a bankruptcy can hold up you doing anything with that character. So it's not that he lost the rights. It's just that it took a long time for something to kind of finalize with that bankruptcy before he could do anything. So he goes into pretty good detail in this one about that world. And I think it's interesting stuff, because even in the interview with the Kayfabers, he says something similar to that. People often don't think about that is a situation that, yeah, it's great you have your rights, but that doesn't mean that you're always going to be safe from a bunch of things.
Wow.
So that's the greatest thing about these issues, is then, so you get that, and then what happens with these other issues, you get a focus on the Grendels from the previous series. So you get to look at the history of the Grendel throughout the previous books, which for a guy like me is really helpful, because I don't know this history to this degree. So it's really nice. They're not huge write-ups. They're usually only a couple of pages. This one here being just 2 pages, where it just talks a little bit about the lore, talks a little bit about that storyline, and then talks a little bit about kind of the world surrounding that particular story. It does give you some spoilers, so fair warning for that. That was the second volume was spoiled for me by this one. I didn't realize it would go to that depth, because I still haven't read the second volume. I have most of it, and I've read a chunk of them, but I haven't finished it yet. So I'm digging it. I'm really digging it. And like I said, the only thing that kind of sometimes doesn't work for me is the art, and it makes things that it's hard again to sometimes tell if it's meant to be if it's always intentional. Like I said, I do feel like sometimes it is intentional. This is a good passage actually to randomly open to. They run into some we are the guardians of pain. Our lives are pain. Pain is our life. We have overseen all entries to the pit for years. They're trying to get into another part of the city, and these are kind of like the guards in service to the Great One. Vivat Grendel. To enter New York is to enter the universe of pain. Show us your pain, warrior, if you wish to proceed. So in the way that he shows them his pain is he jumps off the bridge and into this toxic waters here and climbs up out of it to meet them again. And then they go, okay, yeah, you can pass. So in order to kind of pass into New York, you have to prove to them that you're committed to pain, that life is pain. So it comes off even funnier because of the drawing style. And I don't know if that was intentional. I can't believe it was ever meant to be serious, especially when you see a panel like this. It becomes almost like a Roadrunner, Bugs Bunny kind of cartoon. Yeah, so I find it does take me out of the story a little bit. And it's also because of how kind of these covers are incredible. This Bisley art is incredible. I find that the tone that the cover presents differs from the tone of the book itself. And yes, Bernie Murrow is great. I wish he was still doing comics. He's really great, and I do really love his coloring. I do love the work that he's doing. I mean, even pages like this where completely changing up the color palette for this kind of swampy green. Yeah, it's a fun series, man. I'm digging reading it, and I'm reading it kind of slowly on purpose so I can, absorb it a little bit instead of feeling the pressure to power through 10 issues really quickly. So we'll see. Maybe another week or two, I'll finally get to the last.
I wonder if I can find this in library. Because
I imagine this has been collected. I'm guessing that it has.
Because there's Grendel the first ones. I don't know. Actually, I don't know the timeline, so I can't tell you. But I found there's some other stories, basically not War Child, because I've never seen Grendel War Child. Until
this is 1992, and the thing is, there's been so many Grendel, and there's been so many Grendels. From what I'm understanding, it feels like something that you really could jump in anywhere. It feels like you don't necessarily need to jump in right from the beginning. You can kind of pick up whatever and glean a story. Obviously, it's going to be more rewarding if you know the history, but I don't think it's necessary.
Well, okay. They have a let me see. Wait. There's an omnibus of the Collected Volume 1, but of Grendel Tales, but that doesn't say really. Dark Horse Publisher.
Yep.
Okay. No, it doesn't say which one specifically. 472 pages. Oops.
Yeah, he's done a ton of it now. Yeah, Grendel Tales was a whole other thing too. So there's like Grendel Volume 1, Grendel Volume 2. Then there's all these kind of mini series that are, subtitled, like this one, War Child. There's a bunch of that. And then there's ones that are just called Grendel Tales that I think are also subtitled. And they're, I think, also kind of mini series as well too. So it's one of those again of like, how the hell do you map out the series? How do you read it from 1 to a million, So yeah, I would say if there's anything that you can find at your library, just give it a shot. It's well worth getting into, I think.
Yeah, I have his the guy with the rose on the cover. I had that.
Oh series. Yeah.
I don't know what's the title is, but so that's one of the main ones when I was looking through Matt Wagner stuff. Because I remember I was reading his Mage series, which I actually loved. To be honest, it wasn't even so much dated and stuff, but yeah. But I don't know. That's the thing with Grendel's, because of there's so much of it. So it's difficult to understand where how his timeline holds, because I'm not, I'm not having that information. So talking about
that's why this one is super super helpful. Having those backup little pieces, it's fantastic. It really helps kind of put things in an order.
So you wanted to see Viva and Dente in single format.
Yeah, let's see it.
And I am obliging you to do that. So issue 1.
Yeah, nice.
So and it has this beautiful back cover, by the way.
Oh wow, yeah.
All of them has something not as this, but it shows other things. But it's nice. But
interesting. I thought they were all square bound stuff, but I guess not. Hey.
No. It's also nice what they talks about is in Time Information, when he was creating the story of this is his first attempt to long continuation of the storyline to write as Alan Moore.
Mhm.
He says in here, he also takes the interesting climate of political climate in the country, and Margaret Thatcher in particular, what she was doing, how she wanted to create concentration camps for people with AIDS or homosexuals were supposed to be eradicated. That's kind of interesting part of the history in this country. But this is the David Lloyd's art in this. But they were first published in that magazine format first, isn't it? With
Right.
Miracle Man,
I
or
think so.
like
Yeah.
yeah,
Warrior or
Marvel,
something, right?
yeah, Warrior magazine, yeah. So yeah, Warrior, exactly. So this is beautiful, but this is I
Dude,
think
really nice.
so they created this in a single format for other people's too, because the Warrior magazine wasn't really. I think it didn't print after a while because it got I don't know the history precisely, but you guys were telling that this is supposed to be in black and white, like Damien is saying to you and
Yeah.
on the chat here. But yeah, beautiful stuff. So this is issue 1. Issue 2 has this cover,
Yeah, nice.
and then all of them will have this black and white theme at the back, if you can
Oh,
see.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
and once again, beautiful church in London. I don't forget the name now. I had it, but I slept it away. I lived in London for so long. Beautiful cover. I mean, the art in general. I mean, the faces. It's beautiful to look at. Fantastic. If you can, it wasn't. I remember how difficult it was for me in that time to get hold of all this in single format. Not even talking about Warrior. Warrior is not always easy. Once again,
Fine period. Yeah, right.
the back of the cover. It's actually quite nice. I didn't notice that at the beginning.
Warrior gave it 10 pages at a time, and yes, it never got finished there.
Yeah, exactly. So he mentions that as well. He also mentions that some information he was disclosing in this wasn't really accurate in the time, because he wasn't kind of like exposed to it fully until some certain information he released in the Warrior magazine, and kind of like patched about nuclear bombs and stuff and survival rates he's talking about, because he kind of mentioned apparently in the comic book that you can survive that, but you can't. So
Right.
he, to his own, he's saying that as well. It's quite interesting back covers, to be honest. It gives you a bigger
Great.
spin.
They're
And
fantastic back covers. I love them.
yeah, and then one of those
Oh, yeah.
music notes, when he's playing the song.
Yeah.
And I really like this. I find this absolutely fascinating style of panels,
like
just to have.
Like we talked about before, like minimal use of images and iconography is really goddamn impressive. That's a talent, man.
Look at that. Hey?
Yeah, beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, like almost Back to the Future, somebody mentioned. By the way, I love Back to the Future. So don't diss Back to the Future. What's this? What's
line?
Line, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, back once again. And she continues with those panels, which I absolutely love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm flipping through the graphic novel as you're going, and none of that stuff is included in here.
Really?
Unfortunately. Yeah, at least not that I've seen, like flipping through it. It feels like they've just done the story, because sometimes with the chapter breaks, they'll do stuff like that, but they haven't. I don't see it in here.
I like the color scheme in this here. It's muted colors, okay? It's not like, when you from black and white, they completely changed the skin tones and all that stuff. They kind of didn't use that much. It's more muted colors in here. And the colorists, the colorist was there's Steve Whitaker, Siobhan Dodds, and David Lloyd as well, part of the colorist of this. So he was involved in the creative team. There you go. That's number one. Once again, so he's kind of panning out. That face. I know that face quite often. I've seen Stalin. And this is the first page, which is absolutely, look at that.
That's killer.
That's next page is so, and expressions in the face up. If you, this is your face when you see somebody dead, I think, for sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I need to read this
So
again, I think.
I can imagine the Watchmen with this art style. It would be something, but don't forget, Gibbons still did Gibbons, yeah, in Watchmen's
Yeah, I mean
placement.
it's hard for me to imagine that though because he does such
Yeah,
an incredible job with Watchmen. I
yeah,
can't imagine it
yeah,
looking any other way. It feels like it would be wrong, you know.
yeah. But I honestly,
Honestly,
I
the
was,
coloring in this shit is really fucking good too. Even though
yeah,
I'd love to see it in black and white, and I'm sure it's phenomenal, the
yeah,
coloring used is incredible in here.
yeah. And look at this. I mean, it's never used fully blown
Yeah.
out crazy stuff. Color scheme, and look, this is my what's really draws me into it even
Mm-hmm.
more,
Mm-hmm.
because like this is what you want of this, like moments of the blues, the way he's using those blues is really kind of like muted. It's not that didn't they reprint it and they were playing with the color schemes on this one as well, or did they not touch this one? I don't remember. I know
They may
Watchmen.
have with other volumes, but the one I'm looking through looks to be
Yeah.
identical to what you're holding up. It looks like they didn't fuck with it.
Oh, okay, cool. So there's some
But I mean,
certain
there
some
might be other versions out there at this point.
yeah, because it's been, and oh, that is monumental part of this. And once again,
Love that shit, man.
yeah.
Reminds me of old punk rock 7 inches and like grindcore 7 inches.
Look at this. I mean,
Yeah, it's so great.
rooftop. You know where he's at, what he's doing, kind of thing. So, yeah, I highly recommend if for anybody who hasn't even had a clue about Lloyd's and Alan Moore's work, which I doubt there would be many, but of course for people who hasn't touched comic books, I think this would be a wow of
Yeah.
information. It's quite a lot to intake, though. It's lots of information, especially with Alan Moore. But his storytelling is really great. His page flow is really fantastic, to be honest.
In the collection here, Damien, it says interior coloring by David Lloyd, Steve Whitaker,
Yeah,
and
and Shuan Dodds.
Siobhan Dodos or something, I think is what that says.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
Dodds, maybe.
Dodds.
Anyway, that's what
Dodds.
it says in my book anyway, but
It's this is the same what it says in this format as well. So
okay, yeah.
the same thing. I really like this. I am such a I now, to be honest, I'm so drawn into this kind of black and one color scheme. It's
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
much more enticing for me and so much more interesting than full blown color like this is beautiful for me, like this
Yeah.
one color in black. It speaks volumes. Now I'm becoming such a fan now. I think even now, subconsciously, when I'm looking for something to read, most of the time I get that as well, like really little amount of color used with the blacks, but the pure ability to use the blacks to your own advantages is such a thing to learn. But when you do, it gives you so much more.
I mean, it gives the whole thing a different feel, right?
Yeah.
Like my son in his college course, they're talking about right now they're making zines as one of their projects and doing layout because he's doing design. And that's what it reminds me of, these like political zines or pamphlets. So it feels like you're getting something. If you could just erase that DC logo, it feels like you're getting something like that some individuals produced with their screed, you know what I mean? So
this kind of little touches they've created with this series is fantastic. Looks like they really did put this really good spin and attention to it. And of course the creative team worked at, and they were seeing the first beginnings of the something amazing. Like this is the last issue, by the way. Oh, I didn't show you the back. This is the back.
Mm-hmm.
So it has some sort of, I think if you put the page together, apparently. So yeah, it was such a long way. I remember because people were you start talking about Alan Moore, and everybody will talk about the series straight away after that. Or Watchmen. I think it's two of them. I think Watchmen is always the first. I think if you get introduced to Alan Moore, isn't it?
Go out on the street and ask everybody wearing that fucking mask what it's from, and nobody will be able to tell you.
Seriously?
Yeah, not over here. Maybe where you are, people will be able to tell you, but over here, no, not on your life.
So I remember the first time I seen this poster in London, Leicester Square, or in the theatre realm. It's quite a thing. If you like as a person who just come to visit or as a living, but this face honestly, if you're in London, when you're in London, you see that face quite often, to be honest. Especially in the really night moments. But I don't know if now, because I haven't lived in London for so long and I haven't visited. Look, the famous coffin.
Yeah.
Chapter 11, Valhalla, eh? When he placed in that glass coffin surrounded by roses, and there's destination. It's beautiful. It's really well bloody told series, and this is the end page, by the way. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, spoiler alert on something that's really old that everybody in this room, I'm sure.
No, that should be more interesting, intriguing to see. You know this.
Sorry, let me see that final page again.
Yeah. Wait. Well, this one. That one.
Huh? Yeah.
Do you have
Interesting. I don't know. I'm just flipping. There's some back matter in here. Just let me see.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it ain't the final page in this one.
And Janet Kahn was the president.
Man, I need to get the originals.
Editor was Karen Berger, by the way. So Berger.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. That's your treat for V for Vendetta in single format for you people.
So this is the version that I have here.
I've seen that everywhere. I've seen it quite in bookshops.
But like you were saying, I mean, those greens there,
yeah,
just unbelievable. I love so this is what we get on the kind of chapter breaks. We get some, but we don't get everything as kind of as you.
Oh wow, yeah. So definitely a little bit different, eh? And that's what the DC do when they do. Yeah, the collected edition, sometimes they decide to, like Watchmen had recoloring, wasn't it? I'm not imagining that. Surely it has. But something was like, everybody's like, why would you even dare to recolor that one? Because that was...
I think so, but I think Gibbons was involved in it, I believe,
Yeah.
But I just want to scroll back to some of these comments here because we missed a bunch of them. Jeff was saying, I guess DC owns V for Vendetta like they own Watchmen. How awful is that? Yeah. I mean, it's a bigger conversation, I guess, again, like, you know what you're getting into when you work with those companies. Not a diehard fan of Watchmen, but from what we've seen DC do with continuing Watchmen against Moore's wishes, I'm glad no one's touched V for Vendetta. I know where some writers would go with that. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I always find it funny, against Moore's wishes. Again, like, they don't give a shit about Moore's wishes. It's their characters, right? So V for Vendetta had an intense narrative pacing from beginning to end. The Killing Joke does too, but more compressed, brilliant works. Yeah, right. DC Warner Brothers put a V-type character in that Alfred show just this year. Oh, really? Hey?
What? Seriously?
The sinister, ominous, and claustrophobic elements were completely lost in the film. Yeah, and I mean, and again, it just, you can't translate one to the other with any sort of success to that, the feel of that, right? Like presenting for an audience versus presenting for an individual in this format. It just, it can't be done. You just can't.
No.
V for Vendetta and Marvel Man are my favorite works by him. Hard to choose between the two, which is number one. And yes, Andrew Lopez, it was finished. Track it down. Killing Joke was colored. Killing Joke was recolored by Boland.
Yeah, it was horrible though. I didn't like it.
The one with horrible recoloring was Killing Joke, I believe. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Because when you have that one, that deluxe format edition, that the first printing also, don't forget, there's like hundreds of them, those printings. I remember that was looking for that things, and it was such I think there was a thing, maybe because they were, when they produce a book again, DC, it's gone on the shelves, everybody started looking for the back issues get sold out or gets in high end price. So there was one of those moments, and I remember was looking for that, and I saw, and I picked it up because without realizing what, but there was so much, like when you start to get in that realm of collecting, the lots of information that passes you by before you get excited and going, finding a treasure. Oh my God, this is going to cost blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but to my luck, it was the first printing. I was like, oh my God. And then I went to look how many prints, and all of them are different colors. So the only thing is good about that is the different colors that, you'll know that this is which printing it was, or like there's numerous amount of it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's one of the things. But when you actually read in that original format, and then you see that recoloring, no matter if he was doing the coloring, it's still they use such a colors the way you don't want to have in a story. It doesn't even help. It doesn't lend the story well as well. Because if you actually know the original content, of course, if you don't, and then you go back, and then you can be treated to the original content. I always say that. It's just, I don't know why they're doing that. Well, it doesn't need to be. We don't need to modernize the color. You know what I mean? Leave it as whatever art style it was.
But for some readers, you do though. Like that's the thing. As much as I'm against it as well too. There's a whole crew of people out there that want it recolored. They think that this coloring looks horrible and needs to be updated. You know what I mean? It's you can't. You can't win. So if you don't do it, you piss off the new potential buyers. And if you do it, you piss off the old buyers. I think they've probably balanced it out. It's like, those old people, they're going to buy it anyway. They're going to sucker into it anyway. Like myself, I've done it, and then bitched about the recoloring, so. But yeah, I hear you. It shouldn't be touched. I'm glad to see those. And then in comparison with this, to know that this looked pretty damn close to what it originally was. So that's a good thing.
Cool. Okay, so one more DC from my end, which I wasn't. So this is a fresh stuff. Apparently, DC had a Batman One Bad Day, and I found the Mr. Freeze story written by that's
nice.
Library had it. So I was like, okay, cool. I definitely, because I heard that this is one of the stories which were great, apparently from one. I wanted to. Ra's al Ghul is the number one I would like to read. If I can find it, it's actually quite nice format. It's hardcover, those simple format. It's like comic size, I think. Yeah, it is comic size hardcover. You get from the DC comic book. So One Bad Day, Mr. Freeze by Jerry Dugan and Matteo Carrera. So I told you about him beforehand on Black Science. So he was doing the stuff working with recommended Black Science, but now he's went to do some DC work. I don't know if he's still doing it or he's doing something else. I think maybe he's doing something else, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so Mr. Freeze story, which was 2023. Recent collected, and of course, if you're aware of the Mr. Freeze origin story, this will be not surprise to you because he didn't really dwell the story anywhere further. I don't think, if I remember correctly. I really like the art style by Matteo. I think he has Dave Stewart for colors to help lend that to get that feel. And I really like the color scheme. It's not. They also use the paper, which isn't so too overly glossy, which you can find in comic books these days most of the time. Kind of thin, glossy paper, but this has more tooth to it, and it kind of like gives you the colors a little bit more without having to blow them up, and has the feel. And it kind of at the beginning it felt like almost like Christmas time. It's only like the beginning of that kind of like part where we are entering almost December time, and the darkest winter is where the Batman gets involved to save this couple from the guy with a knife. And there's lots of stories where Robin is basically kind of in between guy, him and Mr. Freeze, whereas Robin is asking Batman, the bad guy can be, or are they always going to be a bad guy, or is there a chance? And throughout the whole this storyline, this question came into fruition. And one thing I can tell you for sure, Matteo can really draw vehicles. Really strong points. It's graphic style. Like, to be honest, it's kind of a mishmash for me of the way he's presenting Batman in here. It kind of reminds me of course, I'm gonna blank the White Knight series done by one guy. What's his name? Oh my god, the artist in
Was it Jock or something? Was that one?
No. Oh my god, why I'm blanking his name? Somebody help me here. But reminds me of the Batman. Reminds me of that. The Robin, the way he's drawn, it reminds me of other kind of like it's really tamed Mateus Corella. Really,
Mm,
artistically, he's absolutely fantastically done. He has the all tools and he's able to produce it, but it's less of him because one thing what Scalera's art is more prominent is his noses. If you see with the characters, but in this one somehow it didn't feel like it. Maybe because he was working for Big Two and he kind of like had to be kind of going in that realm, but I don't know why would he do so. Sean Murphy, thank you, Andrew Lopez, winner. So Sean Murphy's style kind of it shows in here somehow, which I don't know why would it be, but I really like the way Batman dresses up to pretend to be a character like a bad guy who goes into the bar to find Maloney is the character's name, and he's pretending to be this creep with sunglasses and goes into the bar where all the creeps hanging out and finding like extra information. That's how he gets this information. He basically Batman gets his hands dirty, pretends to be somebody else with his sunglasses and a mustache, and he was talking with Alfred, and Alfred says, and Batman says to Alfred, maybe you should have given me a shiner because I have to be part of the crew. And he said, maybe this time you'll be fine because the crew in the bar I'm talking about, they're usually quite beaten. So he goes in the bar, he kind of like pretends to be this dude, and because he was looking for information about Mr. Freeze and then how to get hold of them. And the story about Mr. Freeze is all the same. His wife is dying because she has this illness. He is absolutely, because he's a scientist, he gets to a point where he doesn't see anything and he only wants to help his wife. So he basically freezes her to stop the time. And this is how he's presented in the first page. I love that page, by the way. One of my favorite pages of this. I really like the way they're using the colors for the eyes. I think it's really cool. It just gives you the sense of like the vastness of the character, how he's presenting himself.
mm-hmm.
So overall, like a story, Batman kind of tries to help Mr. Freeze. He gives him a lab where he's what he used to be doing beforehand, how he finds the way to preserve something to get shipped, like for example medications. If you ship from one end to the world to another one, you can actually do so correctly because he has this element. And Batman's trying to basically make him a good guy, or trying to give him a chance to become one. Because what he says about Mr. Freeze at the beginning, Mr. Freeze is not a bad guy from the beginning. Mr. Freeze is a bad guy because of circumstances, like because this is what happened to his wife. He turned into this because the accident happened when GCPD went into his lab and things got exploded and he got turned into what he is now. Also, it's funny how Batman dressed up as a snowman and got to arrest this gang of dudes on motorcycles, and then but while he's full on fighting, like doing all these moves, he tries to explain, it's okay everybody, he's on a really naughty list. So he's trying to explain that this is really bad guys. So it's kind of interesting take, nothing overly dramatic and full blown, but it's very entertaining because you have the vulnerabilities of a child who's questioning his dad, or like not is Damien or Dick? No, it's not dad. It's other Robin in here. Anyway, the Robin is
Right.
asking Batman as a figure, like, can we do something about it? What's the point of us? Like he's starting to question, what's the point of us arresting them if we're going to turn back to be a villain and we can continuous a cycle, like that kind of point. So it's really interesting, and also very good moments with Alfred, and I really like that. The more Alfred gets involved in the Batman story, I think it's just, I don't know, it makes it more entertaining for me as a read. I guess because I like Alfred as a character. I think he's kind of could be more in the limelight, but he's always in the background. But he's a necessary chess piece. You know what I mean? Where I'm talking about like that. So for me to enjoy Batman series anyway, so I'm just showing you the end kind of thing, and this wife being in this chamber where she's kind of like, the Mr. Freeze hasn't taken his wishes of his wife, last wishes of his wife. She wanted to have dignity when she dies, and she wanted him to not be what he kind of like concentrate only on work and no life. She wanted him to have life after that, but he just didn't want it to see that. And the only thing, he was feeling so sorry for himself that he decided to do a deed like that. But there's a very good end to the storyline where Mr. Freeze has this fight scene with Robin, which it didn't show to you, but he whispers something to Robin. It doesn't get disclosed until right at the end of the story, which I don't want it to spoil it for people, because it's a very fresh read. I think it well deserved to. Extra material in
Yeah,
this one.
newer, like within the last year or two, wasn't it? This one?
No, this is this year. This year's release.
Oh, this year. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this event happened just like a couple of months ago, so I don't want to spoil it. You also get covers as an extras. Yeah. Very good, interesting covers in here. So if you collect it in single format, there's definitely, you get your Bollens, you get your Giuseppe Camuncoli, don't hurt, and extra material how he's sketching the Batman. And I told you about this is Robin and Bruce, but this is his car sketches.
Sweet.
Do you look at that stuff? I mean, it's intriguing to see his cars to come into fruition. I really like it. Absolutely fantastic. And this look of the Robin's face is very much of DC's look for Robin. So it doesn't feel like, like Matteo Scarella, to be honest. And this is Mr. Freeze costume designs for him as an extras. As a little graphic novel, honestly, and his wife, which is really sweet looking. So for $17.99 US, you get the whole collected. It's definitely cheaper than in singles, or was it? Because there was extra formats. I don't know how much.
Yeah, was that? Was it that? I think it was square bound or something.
Yeah,
I remember
exactly. Yeah, it was extra shiny cover as well. And yeah, exactly. Balances the Bat world. But then, is he alive now in the continuation? Because they killed him, didn't they?
Oh, really?
Alfred, I'm talking about. Wasn't yeah, he was killed, if I remember correctly. I wonder if he's back now or he's still killed, because Batman without Alfred is a very different Batman. Because as I say, he's the anchor, what leaves the like that good and bad shoulder kind of thing. Like you have Alfred as a good shoulder, and then you have Batman in his bats. It's a bat corner, and Alfred always has managed to kind of sway him not to go to the dark side. Don't go to the bats. Don't go to that. To the tunnels.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why.
I love Freeze. I love that character. Is always handled really well. I remember looking at that one because I think they did One Bad Day for Ra's al Ghul. They also did one for Scarecrow, I think, too, didn't they?
Yeah.
I remember looking at them on the shelf, but I never picked them up. I'd like to read that one.
Yeah, this is it's nice.
Lopez is saying that he's still dead from what he's read, but I've stopped reading the Bat titles.
There's a lot of them. I think people surely gets. Not sure if he it's there's so much Batman these days. I don't know how whoever is a fan. Remember, I used to have those collectors which completely concentrate on Batman. I forgot. Minutia Minute, is that the guy's name? Who is completely Batman?
The Beardo guy. Yeah. He was all Batman.
So, I don't know if he's continue reading comic books, if he ever does, because he doesn't do videos. They will come back one time and he didn't come back again. So those people like him who collects Batman only, remember he's just Batman talk. I mean, you would get tired of that many times. I mean, what kind of police do you have? Because if you continuously think that you can collect everything when it concerns Batman, I don't know where that can go and how entertaining is that kind of part of reading.
Yeah, even John DaCosta had the Bat Chat as well there for a little while. They were doing Bat Chat.
Yeah.
Where they were talking about the tons of titles.
Yeah. And what happened to DaCosta? DC or Jeans DaCosta, whatever.
Yeah,
Like how
he's
many?
still around. Clark Kent Jeans. Yeah, he's on
Yeah,
social
Clark
media
Kent jeans.
sometimes.
No,
Not as
no, I
much as
know.
he
I've
used to.
seen him. Yeah, not that much, but
Yeah,
it still was entertaining when he was doing this
yeah,
videos.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what else do you have? I have one more.
Um,
I have one
I don't
more.
know what I'll talk about next. Maybe I'll do this one. So this was a title that I wasn't familiar with.
Okay.
I should have maybe done this after you did your crime one because it sort of fits into that world. It's called Badlands by
Oh
Stephen
yeah.
Grant and Vincent Girano. So this
Cool.
was only one issue that came out from Vortex, and
Oh
then it
my.
ended up coming out again in a mini series from someone. I don't remember if it was Dark Horse, might have been
Let's check.
Dark Horse, but this is very much like
Mm-hmm.
a crime drama, like a crime story. We start off with in Texas, if Gore Vidal is still here. So this guy is kind of talking to this old lady about what she saw. This takes place in 1964,
Oh.
is when this story takes place. And she's talking about, well, I was there when Kennedy was shot. And I'm telling you, man, that shot came from the hill, the hilly knoll, the glossy, whatever the hell, the grassy knoll. It came from this way. And then we find out that this guy is actually sent here to kill her. So what his associate or her association with him is
Mm-hmm.
pretty apparent that she knows something that whoever this guy works for doesn't want people to know about. So it's a nice kind of couple of panels there. Similar things with this one, like it was with that Grendel. The art style and the coloring threw me off a bit for considering it's kind of a bit more of a violent story. When you
Uh-huh.
have that kind of style and coloring, it leads you to believe that it's a little I don't know, it's a little more lighthearted when clearly it isn't. Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of our introduction. Unfortunately, this one didn't go any further. So you get there's a lot of questions by the end of this one, but it's really intriguing kind of little story here that I want to see if I can find those other issues and maybe get more of a complete story. So then we cut to our one of our main characters just getting out of jail. He was a guy that worked for like a mafia, for like a crime boss, stealing
Mm-hmm.
cars and doing all sorts of things. And of course, as soon as he comes out,
Mm-hmm.
there's the unseemly thugs waiting to pick him up because they want him back in their world. And he doesn't want any part of it. But once he starts going out and looking for a job himself, some of
Mm-hmm.
these pages are pretty great. Just the use of like one color, I think is pretty nice looking stuff. Of course, he realizes it ain't easy to find a job out there, so he decides he's going to take a job from these gangsters. They've set him up here, taken him out for some drinks and taken him out to see some prostitutes so he can get his rocks off after being out of prison. And he starts freaking out on this woman.
Oh
His
no.
guy that's picked him up is kind of watching from behind a mirror, and he kind of pulls him out and kicks his ass to kind of keep him in line there.
Mm.
So it's not a pleasant world, but again, it's this mixed messages that you get when you're reading something that looks like this. It makes it difficult to how are they intending this,
Yeah.
but honestly, these pages are pretty cool looking. I don't think I've really seen coloring like
Yeah.
this before. I couldn't even tell you how it's colored. Let's see if I can get closer there. But
Kind of
something
looks
like that,
digital, but
like
it doesn't look
color
digital in the same
choices.
time.
Sorry, say
Yeah.
that again.
It kind of looks like digital, but it doesn't look like digital. But it's like
Yeah,
it's a bit dirty. That's the thing. It looks
yeah,
like it needs a bit more polishing done. It's like looks like they had intent on using a color, but then they kind of chickened out on some of the panels because it's too blue. For example, the panels are
yeah,
looks from the screen it feels like they're too blue because the
yeah.
art style lends itself for being, I think, a bit more coloring care would make this art stand out a bit better because I don't think the
Mm-hmm.
bad art style is bad at all. I think it panels
No.
work really well, but the
Mm-hmm.
coloring it isn't
The color
amazing.
and it looks just like that in person too. Like, and it makes me
Uh-huh.
wonder that if maybe this was something they did and it was the printing that really
Yeah.
got the things that they were trying to do with the coloring. Once they printed it, it didn't translate. So at the end of the story here, I will
Yeah.
spoil it because it's only one issue.
Yeah.
Our guy is kind of taken in to kind of just be the backup as this enforcer is going to get some money from these guys who own one of the stores. And
Uh-huh.
some guy comes jumping out of the back, basically saying, fuck no, you're not
Uh-huh.
getting anything. We're sick and tired of dealing with you. So our guy who was just supposed to stand by ends up pulling out a gun and shooting this guy. And
Yeah.
now he's told, you got to get out of the city. You got to get out of town. Once he leaves, it's a setup. They've set him up. They wanted to put him in this position where he felt terrified because now they've sent him to meet with what you assume is another unseemly character. But this guy doesn't want to leave any witnesses, so he ends up shooting our two business owners here for real, just at the final kind of page. So, yeah, it does look modern-ish there, Jeff, for sure. But yeah, I feel like the coloring, they might have been trying to do something different, and it just didn't kind of resonate the way that they wanted once they saw the printed product. But
So
the story was pretty damn intriguing, man. I was pretty curious about it.
this issues you're gonna look 6 issue series by Dark Horse, and the first
There
issue
you
with
go.
JF Kennedy and the target
Yep.
point on his head. So
it probably retells this first issue, I imagine.
And then Badlands is issue 2, issue 3, 4.
What does it say? What year that one came out?
1991.
91. When was this
Yeah.
one? This was 1990. So the next year they jumped over there. Okay, well that's good.
There you go. So that's the last issue, number 6.
Very cool.
There you go. I found it for you.
Well, Stig's Inferno introduced me to the art of Gustave Eidur. Yeah.
Oh.
I haven't read a ton of. There was an ad here, is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I haven't read a ton of Stig's Inferno. I've got a couple of issues, but I haven't yet sat and read it. But I definitely don't have the. I'm assuming this was a Vortex. I don't have any of the Vortex titles. I don't think I do anyway. So, yeah, I'm curious about that one.
Cool. It looks interesting. That's a pity about the coloring, man. Because I mean, espionage tales is always intriguing, and now because I saw those covers with JF Kennedy, I wonder where are they gonna go in that realm where when they got shot and blah blah blah, and that famous scene of them sitting in the Cadillac with him and wife while driving away. Yeah. And they have that. It's actually quite pinpointed to, that picture of them sitting in the Cadillac.
Right. Yeah. That almost looks like Sean Phillips there.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of maybe they had inspiration of this, because it definitely has that kind of like Brubakerish, Sean Phillips joint thing inspiration. Never know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it also feels like around that time there was quite a lot that was dealing with like the assassination, you know what I mean? And because even in the Shade the Changing Man series from DC Vertigo, there they talk about that as well too. And this whole, it always ties into like the identity of being an American. What does it mean to be an American? Once that guy is gone and what he stood for, what does that mean for us as Americans? And which is why I'm curious to read this one, because if it is coming from the perspective of gangsters, I think it would be, it might have something interesting to kind of say about if they're going to go down those same roads anyway, right? So,
So my last book from library I found, it's quite intriguing. It's called The Shadows by Zabus and Hippolyte, and this is
look at that.
This is translated from Europe Comics. You remember, I keep on telling you, go to Europe Comic Books online and check it out. So it's originally been printed in Dargo, and it's Dark Horse takeover. And unfortunately, of course, like always, was when is it doesn't say when was it released. Give me a second. Let's see. No. Oh, there you go. 2020 is originally been published. It's that format when they, the cut parts, and they put it in the format of like I think it's the same size as the comic. Give me a second to compare. Yeah, they try to put that the same kind of like a DC comic book of I've showed you. This is a very it's a tale of refugees running from their lands, so kind of lends itself for what's happening these days. And it's a story about refugee 214 who has to tell a story to people in the land he wants to enter, to basically have a permission to do so. And it's about a brother and a sister who's basically escaping the situation in the country. Um, and it starts the location where the interview will get hold of. We meet the person who is going to be interviewed, and the shadows you see behind him is the people he has had on the journey to this interview. It's an intriguing tale. It's quite sad, of course, also because many of the people who he's been traveling with and has perished in some sort of ways. It's not a bit of a spoiler. It's just the way it would happen, no matter what. Even tells to you about the back of the book, so it kind of gives you that kind of sense of it. What it does is also the art style it chooses to be is fascinating for me because of it doesn't you a part of his face. The main characters, you never see their faces. You don't see their identities. You see them like these creatures at the back who has no story left to be told because they're not there to do so. They only have this one person, a boy, who is basically should tell the real story, what happened to him and his family, to this guy who's basically has the whole power to decide whatever the thing will happen to him. And this whole book is basically the tale of demise and how everything happened. Also, while he's telling the story, he has this torment between himself and the person who's sitting listening to it, because what he heard before interview has started is that if you kind of make the story the worst that it possibly can, there's maybe a chance for you to go through the border. But those shadows who is behind him, who only he can see, is to tell the whole truth and how it actually happened to them, because he's the only one who's left to tell the story of his family. So he struggles between that, and it's really lovely. Honestly, there's not much to say. It's just to for you guys to basically give this, maybe if you can give this the book a chance. It's the art style honestly wasn't winning for me at the beginning, but the more you get the story going, and translation honestly felt really not clunky. It just lends itself for, there's lots of things happening, there's lots of emotions happening. It doesn't feel like I was lost in story because translation wasn't done properly. You just get immersed in this travels and this journey once again from point A to point B, and how many things they had to go through, because the person he was going with was his sibling sister, who is younger than himself. So he had all the weight of not only save himself, tell the story of his family, but also to sort of make like his sister live as well. And the color schemes, like you guys see, is and the art style is very scratchy. It looks like a pen, to be honest.
Gorgeous, man.
Sometimes. Yeah, and the colors chosen is really cool. There's not much of the color scheme there. If they used a more different, like red color, it's much more muted, so to lend itself to the page. It's a pity it's not bigger format. I think it would even give you more sense of the story if the book would be bigger. But unfortunately, because it's translated in its originally form, because they have European style format, they also meet this ogre who eats kids, and
Cool. Wow.
got basically taken by him. But before he did take him, he was telling the story like he's a good ogre. He's not a bad guy who eats the kids. But then they gave him something to eat, and the thing what they were eating was of a child, because he just barbecued the person, and he loves them young because they're more tender. There's also the song he was singing, and then while he was singing that song, he took them to his lair where he's like a bad Santa. He makes them work great toys for other kids to be basically captured, and he works them hard. And the way he incentivizes them to work even harder is by whoever loses the grip of work is going to be eaten by him. It's such a tale, honestly. They managed to escape, by the way, so in that sense you realize that there is some sort of good side. They also meet this other guy, and his thing is kind of creepy way of approaching females because he wants to kiss them all the time, and the girl who like but the brother is keeps on having hard time with him because he needs to protect his sister all the time, and it's like you creep. I mean, I know you're helping us and you're coming to like show us this destination where you're supposed to go, but God forbid if you want to touch my sister. So he's kind of like really creepy guy who basically by situation is going with them because apparently he knows the destination. There's another character comes involved who doesn't talk much, and as you can see, none of them has like real faces because it's not what the faces are like looks like is important. Is what situations they're in is what important in the storyline. So yeah, I honestly at the beginning I was kind of like I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it this much, but honestly, the further I went, the more I was intrigued by art style. I started loving the art style even more. The reward was intriguing enough as well. Because honestly, I've never heard of the creators beforehand, but this is kind of like a book in library, which is basically opens the world to somebody who you unfamiliar with. And if Darkos is taking a chance of publishing this, when did they publish? Did I say when it was published? 2020. Did I say 2021? Yeah, Darkos were publishing 2021. This. So yeah, it's one of those. I didn't even know that Darkos was, and this is how they chapters. So I guess it was coming out in chunks of the story. So this is issue 5, let's say this way, and then they enter this.
I can't believe this would come out in single issue format. That seems like a shame.
Yeah,
this feels like if you would tell me this was a fan of graphics, I would have believed it, right? Like it feels like why would you split this up? You have to put it out collected.
Yeah, exactly. But then as I say, it's really would even I 100% sure if this story would be in that bigger original European format, the story would lend itself even more because it needs to have that kind of like because look at the color, it's a watercolor, and I think it's all watercolor to be honest, because because the way it feels after it's printed, because it's the way it moves it, so it really works well. You need that kind of feel of the grandeur, the moment when they reach the destination. This is what they wanted to go, is the river. So there's some points of destination they want to get to. First the border, then the river, then this other world in other land or surviving moment, but that in bigger format will lend it more as a grand moment for these characters to reach this place. But in this format, still great. I mean, black and white is absolutely fantastic, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So as I say, it's a grower. Like you say, you see at the beginning, just give it a chance, flip them, go into storyline, get invested in the characters and these two children who's trying to travel from A to B without parents and meeting all that troubling situations before them and get to the something. But the thing, and this guy who's keep on approaching, and you always see this really interesting, like say ghost, this is how the ghost appears to him, is his father, who he doesn't had a really good relationship, but he's trying kind of to tell you and explain to your situation how everything happens. It's fantastic, as I say. And then there's mermaids comes into fruition because they're on the boat, and they only ones who has proper like face and boobs and expressions, and they also sinister look to them, and they have more color to them as well, by the way. It's kind of say there's a extra characters comes in the storyline. So people, Shadows by Zabuz, it's a writer, and Hippolyte is the artist. Nothing else I know about them. I know they created another book, apparently. There is, I don't know if it's in English already translated, but I've seen it's a yellow looking cover. I don't remember the name yet because, as I said, I didn't have enough time to do exploration, but this is really cool. I mean, honestly, if Dark Horse is doing now Europe comics reprints, so if we can do more Europe comic books, I keep on bragging that Undertaker I keep on talking about, which is extremely popular in Europe. It's not popular around UK because I don't find them, only in digital format, unfortunately, not printed. If Undertaker gets to be printed in English format, geez, Louise, if you like Western, I mean, I showed it to you. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, that's the Europe comics one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I keep on talking about because it's the new volume is keep on because it's new. It keeps on gets produced. So he's already advertising another volume coming out in, of course, in Europe, in French.
Mhm.
And I follow him on Instagram, and unfortunately, his interviews are in French. I was like, I can't understand anything of it, and I want to
Mhm.
know what he's talking about, because he's showing some pictures of the volume's work, and it's just looks as good as always. So Europe Comics is definitely worth a look, people.
Yeah, for sure.
They have some, like, as Europeans, translated in English in digital format, unfortunately at the moment, but you never know. Maybe the more people will like it, maybe the more exposed they would be to do so. I don't know.
Mhm.
Anyway.
Cool. Yeah, that looked killer. I loved it.
Mhm.
So the last one I'll talk about, we'll do this quickly here. So Firefly and the
Oh,
Fall Guys, issue number 3, we're on. There's Frank Avia covers. He's been
ooh,
doing a cover
lovely.
for each of them.
Good, good.
It's still good because I'm right in that Firefly mode. And then I dug into my drawers. There was a 20th anniversary special that I hadn't read. So I read that one, and that was real fun too. But the last one that I'll talk about is this from our friend Nate, from the
Mhm.
gigantic box of comics that Nate sent to me.
Oh yeah.
This is one from Harrier Comics. So it's Harrier
Mhm.
Showcase Magazine. I think it
Mhm.
was 1986. I think it's in the golden age. Yeah, 1986. So it's issue 1 of, I think it went like 12 or 14 issues of their anthology for their company. This
Mhm.
is so much better. It's another one of those cases that this is so much better than it has any right to be. This was such a fun book, and I think it's because of that UK take on characters and storytelling. There's been
Oh.
so much from Harrier that I've read over the year or two now that I've been reading some of their stuff. There's a lot of stuff that they've done that's just really good. They were a really interesting little company. It's a shame they didn't kind of last even longer. So even when it deals with like what it is in this first one, it's basically a superhero origin story, but it's kind of, again, keeping in that kind of Alan Moore type of world when it comes to a superhero origin story, because it's not a happy origin story. It's this cop. She gets snatched off the street by these just
Mhm.
fucking psychopaths, and you think they're just going to rape her. They don't
Oh.
actually, but it's even darker than that because they have some sort of box with some sort of demon or some sort of like witchcraft going on that nobody can open the box, and everybody that they've tried to get to open the box, they've
Oh.
met various fates. He's scarred and blind because he tried to open the box. And here's the box. The perspective on this drawing is a little weird. It's actually just small, but the way they draw it in the panel, it looks like it's like coffin size. It's actually not. So she's sent in, you're the next one. You're the one that's going to open this box because we need to know the mysteries of it. So
Oh shoot.
she sees what's in the box, but it doesn't kill her, and it kind of possesses her. And now she kind of goes in even harder on these guys and kind of gets her revenge. But you know, but it's all mixed with, it's kind of like she just wants to be, it's a world where superheroes exist.
Uh-huh.
So there's already superheroes out there. She has already felt as a cop that she's kind of useless and how she kind of wants to be a superhero. So now
Uh-huh.
she has these powers. So it's the classic, is she going to become a supervillain or is she going to become a superhero? And
Mhm.
I am so intrigued to follow up with this. I really need to find the rest of these issues because I'm super curious where this story is going to go. A hell of a first look into a new world here. So here she is kind of, still kind of
Ooh.
punishing some of these guys. I should say the creators on this one.
Yes, please.
It's called Diana is the Power, and it's by Rob Sharp and then art by Staz Johnson. And Rob Sharp writes a couple of things in here. I think he
Mhm.
might be one of the publishers or the editor as well, because the intro kind of letter from the editor here is Rob Sharp. So I think
Mhm.
he had something to do with Harrier Comics in general. Um, and I think this is the story that stole the show. There's a few other stories in here. This one is kind of, it's definitely more cartoony and back to back with that Diana is the Power.
Mhm.
It really kind of it doesn't fare as well. I was automatically not interested in it just because of the art style. And
Uh-huh.
it's sort of this kind of basic angel and a devil in their human forms, and
Mhm.
they're starting a relationship with each other. And obviously, it can never be because they're
Mm.
opposite sides of the world, yada yada yada. So it was
Yeah.
it was a little dull. It was a down point.
Uh-huh.
And then some beautiful art next by Pete Martin is the guy that's listed here, and then Art Weatherall. So just a one-pager kind of gag strip, but the art here by Pete Martin is a stunner. The little story itself is, like I said, it's just like a little gag that doesn't really pay off very much, but that art is unbelievable. This guy has the power to turn things into gold just by touching them. So of course he sneezes, touches his nose, and turns himself into gold. So kind of a little gag there, but I love the way like this top panel here is
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Really nice black and white work. And then one called Aces. That's it's again, it's like a birth of a superhero team, but not really. There's these magical elements
Mhm.
based on kind of cards. I think this guy is a vampire as well too. So pardon me, a real mixing of kind of genres into one story. And it's, do these people want it bad enough to be these heroes that is kind of being offered to them? And that's kind of where it starts off with. I think this is another one that continues through quite a few of the issues. So I'll be curious to see where this one goes. But again, I do like the art in it. Like stuff like that is really
Oh yes.
cool
Mhm.
looking. So such a surprise, man. And it's nice to be surprised with some of these books. And then this other one, it feels like a character that I've seen somewhere else too. This character called Grun in Bombay. And I honestly don't remember much about it. It almost reminds me of Fujitaki Dalgota, to be honest, now that I'm looking at it again. And some of the
Mhm.
characters remind me of Matt Howarth, because
Yeah.
those two characters there with their eye makeup, they really remind me of something you'd see in a Matt Howarth comic.
Mhm.
Unbelievably so. So it feels like there's a couple of references in there, and here you can see them again. And that's what it feels like to me there as well too. They'd be just as comfortable in Howarth's worlds, the Mad Empress kind of world or whatever. So not much else really stood out to me from this one, though. It's not really memorable. The art style is fine, but that Diana is the power is the draw in this book for sure. And so much comics that it's even printed on the inside cover of the book as well too. And
Mhm.
then an ad on the back that looks very Spain Rodriguez undergroundy kind of look to it. So such a cool mix of stuff from such a cool mix of stuff from this company, from UK based stuff, superhero stuff, underground vibes, dealing with some people that worked at Marvel UK and some of the other stuff that we've looked at. But yeah, it looks really cool. I agree. Diana is the power is a pretty great name for it. So
Issue number
these artists are way above average for the typical black and white boom at the time. Absolutely. And that's why it surprises me. I'd like to know more history about Harrier itself to see what exactly happened to that company. Why weren't they more successful? Because they had a hell of a lot of books out there.
issue 4.
Hold on one sec. Let me.
It looks like that grand guy is
Oh
in
yeah, there he is on the cover. Hey, yeah.
It
Yeah,
says
so I
the
imagine all the stories in here continue through the whole series, the whole run.
it says the end for grand.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Harrier Showcase magazine. Yeah, I've seen it before. Honestly, I have. Now I've seen the logo because I've seen them, but I've never got my attention. It's
Yep.
So I don't know how many there is, but I saw it's just like apparently it's from 1986 rare comics you can get a hold of.
Let
I
me have
wonder.
a look here.
I need to go to that website. I usually go because he usually the one online has the more obscure comic books choices in more
Right.
other range. You know what I would. yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it. I know what place you're talking about. And for those in North America or specifically in the States, I'm just looking on my comic shop. And so it did go 14 issues. And it
Oh,
looks
that
like my comic shop has
all of them?
11 of them in stock right now, 11 of the issues. And they're like, all of them are kind of $2.50 each. 250, 250. Yeah. So, and they've got most of them in stock by the looks of it. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
I'm definitely in the market for more of those. I'll be keeping my eyes open for sure.
Anyway, I'll have to, because that eagle is that the logo we have.
Yes. Yeah.
I've seen it definitely for sure, but I'm not sure I can place it to other comic book
Right.
that I see them producing, because they have that, like 12p to 50p, like I bet I could see them in all those old school music shops if you can find them these days. Yeah.
Yeah. Harrier is a UK publisher, their gun. And it's Harrier is how you spell it if you're going to look online there.
Cool. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, fun
the
stuff,
black and
man.
white is always, you never know, like that's, yeah, you can find something and you never thought that you would be enjoying it, but then hell, you use like a little treasure once again.
Well, and the thing is, like, it feels like everything I'm reading from Harrier, it's just every single title I'm reading has something really cool about it, that I'm really, really liking. So it's so far, I mean, there isn't stuff that's like blowing my mind, but it's really intriguing enough that, man, I want more. Just want more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you like it, that means it's something you want to read. So
Damn straight.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anything else for you?
Mm-mm.
No, that's it.
I stop yawning because I guess
Yeah, right.
my sleepyhead is coming into. It's quite late here. Okay, it's just 10:30. Just I need to switch off
we'll
my
get the
brain
hell
as
out of
well.
here so you can go to sleep. Thanks very much, everybody, for hanging out. It's good to see you all. You know who you are. We appreciate you coming back. And we'll see you next week, probably on Rosa's channel. So keep an eye out. Make sure that you subscribe to her channel so you can come and join us again. And that's it. Right on. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
Later.